situation. If the officials are happy, then the red lights will extinguish, and this 125-minute race for the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship round 5 of the season is going to get underway. The lights are still on red. They go out now, and we're off and running here at Silverstone with this big field of cars heading towards Abbey for the first time. So it's Will Stacey in that little blue Lotus Elise on the inside line, but he's going to lose out to the much bigger car. 2 drivers left. That is the car being started by Carl Swift, the Seat Leon TCR car. A spin very early on in the race for Luke Browse in car number 22. That car started on row 6 of the grid, so he will be dropping right towards the back of the field. And we briefly got a change for second there as James Marshall in the second of those Seat Leons briefly got ahead of Will Stacey, but I think Stacey put that right through the link, and as they head down to Hangar for the first time in this race, it should be, we see the car of Rob Baker and Carl Swift being started by Carl Swift leading the race.
Yep, so Carl starting to try and check out a little bit. Everybody else in second at the end of this first lap. 3 of them Seats or indeed Cupras. As to the inside line, the number 15 car will go. Colin Gillespie looking for a way by. And the other car that started on the front row, Will Stacey, just getting bogged down a little bit and swallowed up by the TCR cars, effectively the hatchbacks that are higher, as Ian has mentioned, rather than the lower slung Lotus Elise, but that's not preventing them at the moment, or isn't preventing the Cupras and the Seats from heading right to the front of the order with 1 lap already in the book. But I suppose the game plan here, from Will Stacey's point of view, is just staying in the mix.
That's absolutely right. Now, in Class B, it looks like Chris Freeman has taken the lead there, and Luke Handley, who was on Class B pole position, he has dropped down to 17th place overall, so about 5th within Class B as well. So a poor start from Luke Handley in the Golf, and losing out to the teammate car, the fellow area motorsport VW Golf with Chris Freeman. So he has gone through, and on the first lap it looks like Nick Dougal and John Munro. We didn't know who was starting that car, but certainly the Dougal and Munro car, I suspect John Munro therefore who started it, has got into the lead ahead of the BMW of Dan Orsano, coming towards the end of lap 2 already.
And Carl Swift is already through Vale Corner and Club, but he's not embroiled in this nose-to-tail fight for second position, involving 3 Cupras and then the Will Stacey driven Lotus. I assume, as far as drivers' names are concerned, my grid sheet cannot be relied upon, because, for instance, Rob Baker is putting the number 1 car, but I think that's just because he's driver 1.
Yes.
And that's what's churned out from our timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the start drivers as provided. And on my sheet, hopefully you've got...
oh yeah, I've got a copy of that as well. It's just
it's
1 or 2
on,
bits
on
of paperwork. Yeah,
exactly. Fine.
Thank you for that.
That's okay. 2 hours, 2 minutes to go. So we're very in the early stages of this. Oh, and that's Alan Henderson there looking a little bit out of shape. There's number 37. That's Andy Marston, and he is in battle with number 69 Matthew Hampson. So that is a car that Andy Schultz will take over in the later stages of this race. And Andy Schultz in the 69 car will be much the quicker driver of the 2. It's quite interesting this, because most of these teams do have 2 drivers to change to the mandatory pit stop. As we watch now the 67 car in, this is Julian McBride. Now he is a solo driver, so this is obviously an unscheduled stop, because you can't make a mandatory stop until you get to the 30-minute point within the race. And it looks like they're looking at something there on the front right of Julian McBride's car, the driver from Woodcote in Oxfordshire, who is 55 years of age. So dramas early on for Julian McBride.
Yeah, they were shaking the front right wheel around. It needed to be off the ground though, just to check the integrity of the hub maybe. Perhaps the tracking arm has been bent out of shape. It's been busy in the middle order in the opening stages, no doubt about it. And for Carl Swift, he's just pleased to be up the road by 2.7 seconds. But on this short lap, it's really not going to take too long for him to start to find traffic. For the time being, he has an open road in front of him. Behind is the 86 car then of the Townsend and Joe Marshall combination. Marshall starting that car from 3rd position. And in 3rd place, it is Ben Rushworth, who started well, qualified in 6th, but already up to 3rd.
Yes, the Hot Hats champion from a few seasons ago had a late call-up at the beginning of this season to race this Corton Miller Seat, and he's been pretty rapid on the occasions that he's done so so far. He's done bits of historic racing as well, made his name in Metros initially, did Ben Rushworth. So got an experience of quite a few different kinds of motorsport, but he's always very quick, whatever he turns his hand to. That is the 14 car of Chris Freeman just going through, and he is our Class B leader at the moment, as we're watching Andy Marston make a place here on the Ryan Parkin and Dan Sylvester Audi, and it's that car that we're on board with now, just watching the BMW go through. And I think he also lost another position as well, didn't he? Is that to the Wallace Seat, possibly? It looks a bit more Golf-like up ahead.
Yeah, Wallace was the Wallace and Wallace car was the next in the sequence. 3 abreast into the right-hander at Village, a battle that involves the 46 car of Matty Taylor, which is the Holden Commodore, and tucked in behind is the Honda Civic. 707 is the BMW. In behind there as well. Now, is there a chance for Stacey or Boston, whichever is in that car?
It's Will Stacey.
We know that for a fact, do we? Okay, so Will Stacey to the outside line, and a really good overtake that on Ben Rushworth to get one of the places that the little Lotus lost at the start back again, although Rushworth not too happy with that, and they're absolutely nose to tail looking for the inside line at Abbey Corner. Almost contact. The rear diffuser protrudes quite a bit out the back of the number 49 Lotus. Cupra driver did well not to snatch that.
Yeah, absolutely right. So watching those going through Village, so he's now tucked in behind the 86 car of Joseph Marshall, another of these Seat Lan TCR cars, which seem quite popular. Oh, and the 11 cars now in the pit garages, so that's disaster for Ryan Parkin and Daniel Sylvester. That's a car that has gone well on occasions this season, but sadly out of the race it would seem. I think that's his Julian McBride's car that we're still having a look at as well, isn't it? No, that's the 60 car in fact, so it's another car that we're looking at now, which is the car of Roger Coy and Callum Lockie, isn't it? Yes, Callum Lockie it was that started that car, but that's now back into the pit lane. So a couple of BMWs actually in early strife, which is most of BMW like. Yes,
so oh, they switched to a BMW. That's down as a Porsche on my sheet, but again it might be clashing paperwork. Porsche 968.
Okay,
no?
Possibly, yes. You might well be right. I was reading the wrong line, I think.
So front engine Porsche.
Yes, that would work. That would fit. Yeah.
It certainly didn't look like a BMW straight 6, but yeah, Porsche 968. I haven't done a lot of work on those cars, so I wouldn't know for a fact. Anyway, Carl Swift, I do know, is leading this race in his Cupra, I want to say. A lot of these run with the Cupra badges on the front, so they're down on the entry list as Seats, but Joseph Marshall's, for instance, the 86, definitely a Cupra, and being shadowed all the way by a rampant Will Stacey. Stacey to the left, to the right. He's already got ahead of Rushworth for 1 position. That gave him 3rd, and this is for 2nd place, although Rushworth not allowing that to lie either. They will arrive at Stowe Corner as 1, ducking underneath the Mini there at Stowe Corner. That will be the Cooper, possibly the Jones and George combination, number 58.
Yeah, Christopher Jones at the wheel of that car at the moment, but Will Stacey is trying everything possible to get past Joseph Marshall in that number 86 car, the Capture Motorsports prepared vehicle. It's allowed Ben Rushworth to sort of really go with them as well. The leading car of Carl Swift is nearly 7 seconds up the road at the moment. There it is, just coming up to lap the number 98 car. That's Roy Baptiste at the wheel of that one, and also 53, which is Dan Orsano at the moment. So that's a battle for position in Class C, actually for 3rd position within Class C. As there, Will Stacey has done it, hasn't he? He's got ahead of Joseph Marshall now, and up to 2nd place, and now he's going to try and lap the treble 8 McGann of Price and Miller.
It was interesting hearing from Will earlier on in the day, talking about who'd chosen to go into the car initially for qualifying, as again there's overlapping taking place. Great straight line speed. You wouldn't have thought a Cupra was more slippery than a Lotus, but nevertheless he's able to pick him off his Marshall at the end of the hanger straight and around the outside. Now, did that stick? No, not quite. Still, the 2 Cupras are behind the Lotus Elise.
Yep, so they are very close together indeed, aren't they, as they turn their way through Club Corner and towards the end of their 8th lap of the race already. We've had about 10 minutes of the race so far, so they go over the line for 3rd and 4th, nose to tail. And if there's then a bit of a gap back to another of the Leons, that's Colin Gillespie, or the Phil Driver starts in the car in 5th place, and Alan Henderson's Lotus in 6th. But here you can see Will Stacey trying to get back marks between himself and the 86 car. Now the 86 car's got its wipers on.
Yeah.
I'm looking out of our commentary box window to see if it's actually raining. I'm not sure it is.
I'm not. Yeah, there was a sprinkling of rain in the air just before the cars were summoned to the grid. So it might be that period of the day where we're going to get passing showers, but only the slightest bit of precipitation. Might only affect 1 or 2 corners on this short lap at Silverstone, the Silverstone International Circuit. Heading down towards Stowe again. Now Will Stacey is establishing more of a gap in 2nd place from Marshall and Rushworth behind. Those two are going to think about overlapping. Again, TCR cars, no stranger to cut and thrust racing. That's certainly what we've got barely 10 minutes into this 125-minute affair. And Joseph Marshall heading out of club corner to whip across the timing line once again. 3rd and 4th positions with a bigger gap back to, well, about the same sort of size gap back to 5th place for yet another Spanish car, a Cupra for Gillespie and Drybrough back 3 seconds to the rear.
So Will Stacey, number 49, 22 years of age. I did have to look that up because he looks very young, does Will Stacey. So I did look it up, and he looks youthful for his 22 years, does Will Stacey. And he's showing that car with Rob Bottom, but he's now about 3 seconds clear of these two, the Marshall and Rushworth Leons, the batting position. There you can see the Mazda, the number 3 TWP Racing Mazda, has also got its wipers going. So that's John Munro. He's Scottish, so he should know what it's like to see rain on the windscreen, I should think. But he, of course, is being lapped there by the 2 Cupras that are heading down towards Vale Corner, and they're almost side by side this time. It's maybe an endurance race, but Ben Rushworth is certainly keen to get ahead of that very similar car.
So Joseph Townsend heading now through the right, Joseph Marshall should say, heading through the club corner. We've now got small raindrops on our commentary box window, I notice, at Abbey, so that would back up Joseph Marshall's decision to turn the wipers on. The bright lime green BMW has come into pit lane, maybe bearing some scars on the front right corner, but a bigger concern is a smoking, well, that's water temperature, I would say, which has gone sky high.
Yeah, bonnet's going down, so that's a bit of a, that's not going any further type gesture, isn't it? That's Jonathan Barrett, I think, in the number 7 car, who has he's going to drop out of the race there. So disappointment for him. Yeah, he's undoing his belts there and had a very sad look in his eyes.
I mean, he struggled in qualifying in the shorter race that he did yesterday as the 707 BMW, and it was really fun to watch him come through the order after a good pit stop in the 45-minute Enduro here on Saturday. But yeah, this early on in a 2-hour race, 2 hours and 5-minute race, to be out already, and clearly you stand to lose far more than you will gain in pushing that car with the engine temperature already sky high by the looks of things. You're going to do lots of internal damage, so something you've got to swallow, unfortunately, and come back fighting at the next meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just watching a moment ago the leading Leon of Bacon Swift, Carl Swift at the wheel at the moment, having to take the run-off area to go round the outside of one of the Golfs there. As we continue to watch this battle for 3rd position between Rushworth in number 2 and Marshall in number 86. They are about 3.5 seconds clear of Phil Drybrough, who is making only the most modest of progress towards them in another of the Leons. Just about see him in the background of shot there. And then behind him, I think, is Alan Henderson in the Lotus Elise, one of the similar cars to the number 10 car, which they are lapping at the moment. That being the car of Fenwick and Shepherd, Robert Fenwick at the wheel of the Elite at the moment. That's though a Class B car rather than a Class A car like Alan Henderson.
Simon Mason in the mix there in the number 87 Clio Cup car that has just gone a lap down compared to these two Cupras that occupy 3rd and 4th. It's a similar car in 5th in the hands of Phil Dryborough, and then solo competitor Alan Henderson in the 166 comes next in the Elise as mentioned. A reminder that it is still Carl Swift who leads by 5.2 seconds, and that is the gap visually back to the royal blue, metallic royal blue Lotus Elise of Will Stacey. So Rob Boston to come a little bit later on. It'll be interesting to see how they split the race. Probably only one driver change. You can do this race from a regulation point of view with just the one mandatory stop. It's just a question of whether you can do that on fuel. Well, an hour for even these high-powered cars is probably fine. The whole front of that VW Golf is shaking around at terminal speed there, just before it slows for the right-hander at Stowe Corner. Got one of the older shape Seats behind, which is car number 31. Yes.
That's Mike Morace at the wheel of that one at the moment. Leon Cooper R. So I was just on the time screen as well, just wondering where Luke Handley got up to, because he made that poor start to the race in Class B. He's still 4th in Class B. Chris Freeman at number 14 Golf still heading back from Scott Parkin in 2nd place, number 12, and it's the Steve Houston Porsche Cayman that's 3rd within Class B at the moment. But Luke Handley has just done his personal best lap of the race as well, so we'll see if he can continue to improve after that disappointing start for the Class B poleman and championship leader.
So Morace, despite Chapman being on the side of the car, because Chapman will join in a little later, tackling this next challenge, which is to overtake Joe Williams, and he can do it between Village and the Link, the right-hander there onto the hanger straight. So well timed, good poke clearly in the lower gears for the older Seat, and he jumps ahead of Joe Williams for 20th position. Also now, Phil Dryborough getting very close to a back marker, and Dryborough is threading the eye of the needle, still in that 5th spot.
Well, that was for position there with the Lotus of 166, Alan Henderson. So that's Henderson getting onto the tail of Phil Dryborough there. In fact, Henderson was ahead on the previous lap, so Dryborough's got back in front. So that's the chops and changes there for 5th position between those two. And then the next car behind them is about 5 seconds down the road, which is Andy Marston in his BMW that we saw out yesterday as well. So they can see the change being confirmed on the screen. Driver back ahead of Henderson for 5th position. There is Andy Marston, number 37, going through, and he's only just ahead now of the Matthew Wallace Leon as well. That's in 8th position.
Dryborough, out of our commentary box window there, had a big tank slapper on and had to get out the gas, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Alan Henderson back in front, in fact, if he can get all of that sealed before Village. Brilliant to see how each of these very different cars favours various different parts of the lap. The Lotus Elise clearly good through the tight and twisty stuff in the first sector, but then the Seat can pick off cars on the straight and narrow. 98 BMW in strife now as well, looking for a way back onto the circuit. That's the Rory Baptiste Tim Hartland car.
As we head down to Chris Stevens in the pit lane.
I'm down here at the garage for car number 11. Jake, can you tell us what the problem with the car was?
So basically, by the sounds of it, what the driver explained was he hit a sausage curb and then it felt like the wheel fell off. We believe there's been a bit of an internal gearbox hiccup. It's just not felt very well with itself, and he's come in, we've reset all the gearbox software, and he's gone out, and by the looks of it, the car's doing all right. There was no visible faults. There was a couple of electronic malfunctions in there, which we believe was caused by a bit of an impact from a sausage curb, which he said wasn't that severe, but as racing drivers explained there, not severe to being severe is not that dissimilar. So fingers crossed he goes all right. He's not going to win, but the car's all right, and that's the main thing.
You're expecting it to hold up for the rest of the race?
Yeah, it should hold up. We have got a spare car in the trailer if worst comes to the worst.
So what do you think you guys can achieve from here?
Going forward, I think we can sort of look into why it's done it, see if we can make any improvements internally to the gearbox or to the software itself to stop it malfunctioning in the future. I spoke too soon. He's back.
Yeah, unfortunately, car number 11 coming back into the pits now, so it seems like whatever the issue was is recurring. So we will let the team get on with it and not try and get in their way as much as possible. Just give you an update on what else has been going on down here in the pit lane. Obviously, Julian McBride was one of the first cars to come into the pit lane. He said that his car was pulling to the left. They had a quick look over the car, couldn't find anything strange, so sent him back out on his way. There were also gearbox issues for the number 32 car that came in. That's pulled into the garage just in front of me here. And we've got quite a good look at the number 60 Porsche just behind us that was smoking quite a lot as it came into pit lane and has been leaking fluids all over the nice pit lane here at the international pits at Silverstone. And one last thing, obviously Jonathan Barrett in the number 7 Saxon Motorsport car, quite a popular entry, having had that car rebuilt after quite a nasty shunt at the first meeting of the season, said that he lost power steering. So quite a lot going on in the opening stages of this Club Enduro race. Let's go back to you, Ian.
Thank you for all of those updates. Chris, good to know what's been going on down there, the various dramas that we've had for various cars, including that Porsche of Roger Coy and Callum Lockie. So we've just had just over 20 minutes of this race so far. An hour and 44 minutes are left to go in this race. It is Carl Swift that is leading, but the gap between first and second is down to 1.25 seconds, and these are the two cars you can see heading down the hanger straight towards Stowe Corner now. Just let that back marking Mazda MX-5 go through. So these are the two leaders, Carl Swift and Will Stacey. They're just going through a shot there at Stowe Corner, and they're about to head down to Vale as well. So Will Stacey really has narrowed the gap to the race leader there, Johnny.
Got his head down and he's reeled in Carl Swift. We know that there's good speed in the Lotus Elise, and again, it's promising to be a real fraught battle at the sharp end, because the Lotus will find its speed on each and every lap in different places compared to the race leader. The TCR cars are strong down the Hamilton Straight and down the Hanger Straight, but now we get to Abbey Corner. The aerodynamics, the downforce that the Lotus is able to establish and indeed express is really useful for Will Stacey. Rob Boston still to come in this car. Remember, it will be Rob Baker in the Carl Swift Cupra a little bit later on as well. Just jumping ahead of a few back markers and kicking up the dust into Will Stacey's face. That won't faze him though. Back onto the Hanger Straight, and they're going to have to be dodging through traffic pretty much all the way to the finish.
Yes, with still I think 35 cars out there probably. It's a very busy circuit here. They're lapping the number 66 car, which is the Hayes and Subiani BMW. That is the car that is actually leading Class C now, because they've got ahead of the Mazda of John Munro, the number 3 TWP racing car. So they've just lapped the Class C leader, I think, for a second time now, the Hayes and Subiani car. So here come the leaders through to complete lap number 19. That was 8 tenths of a second, it's down to 6 tenths of a second now. Lap times in the 1:13s there, so they're still only lapping about a second off the ultimate pace, even with all of the traffic that they're having to deal with, which is really quite impressive.
Joseph Marshall's pace, on the other hand, was about a second slower than the leading duo, and he might be bogged down in traffic. In fact, no, he's absolutely side by side with his rival all race into Abbey Corner, running with Ben Rushworth, and they are completely engrossed in their own arm wrestle for third and fourth positions.
Now that car that we just saw in the pit lane, was that a 37 BMW? I think it may well have been of Andy Marston. That, yes, getting the nods on that, it is the Andy Marston car, so that's from 7th position, so that's quite significant. And again, it's too early to be a mandatory stop. They can start making their stops about 6 minutes from now, so problems for the leading BMW entry of Andy Marston. You can just see he's lost a position now to Matthew Hampton, who's flicked up into 8th place on the timing tower.
1:15.9 for Andy Marston as an in-lap would indicate he's off the pace, particularly as the timing loop is earlier in pit road than it is on the track, so that will have cost him 2, 3, maybe 4 seconds as an in-lap, indicating some sort of problem which he wants to try and get sorted. There's plenty of race time still available to those that have had to make early stops and outside of the mandatory time. Meanwhile, 27 Audi turning right. This was the one in difficulty this morning in qualifying. Massive amount of white smoke pouring out the back of the Audi. I was suggesting at the time it might have been a turbo failure. Clearly the engine's all right because the car's going well now, so if they've changed the turbo, hopefully that was a relatively quick fix. And he's drawing level with the VW Golf on the hangar straight. Car number 12, VW Golf now working its way into Stowe corner of Scott Parkin.
Yeah, and that will be for 10th position, I think, won't it? So that'll be up into the top 10 for the 27 car, which is being started by Mark Grice. As into the pits goes one of the Golfs. Didn't see which one that was, but again, that's too early for it to be a scheduled stop. As there we see the 49 car of Will Stacey heading through, so he was 4 tenths behind at the end of the previous lap. The gap's gone out a bit now again, possibly because of traffic, and it's now 1.56 seconds, the gap between 30 seconds.
Just heading into Abbey now, so Carl Swift reacting nicely to the attack offered by Will Stacey. 112.84 for Carl last time through. There is Scott Parkin in 11th position then. And does that account for the 37 car now in the pit lane? Yes, 37 has dropped down the order of Andy Marsden. So they're all in their rightful positions on our timing tower as well. Mark Grice then occupying 10th. They have the cushion of the Clio Cup car of Simon Mason between them. And now in the pits, trying to cool down brakes, maybe on the VW Golf that was escaping into pit lane as you spotted, Ian.
Yeah, so which one is that? Just looking to see the number on that. It's the 90-something car, isn't it? So 99 car, which is Joe Williams, his Golf. Now, where was he? He was 23rd last time we played on time. Oh, and the McGann's off the road as well. That's the treble 8 car. So don't need subtitles to see that that one's heading into the pit lane, and well, not into the pit lane, but into a safe place and out of the way. So that's the Graham Price and James Miller car. It was James Miller at the wheel of it at the moment. So that's another retirement, I'm afraid.
Busy into the first corner with about 4 cars all dicing for road position into Abbey as we concentrate on the run into Vale corner, where arriving there is Phil Dryborough, still in the... Actually, that's not... Is that Dryborough? No, it's not. Single digit.
That's the Wallace car,
Cupra.
I think,
okay, yes. So 7th position for Wallace & Wallace. And behind is the 69 car. Race leader Carl Swift in the foreground. A Dayglow yellow and white machine.
Will Stacey's being passed.
Slowing. Yes, he is.
Slowing.
Just about to say, look at the Lotus Elise in the royal blue. That's the 2nd place. Well, perhaps for not much longer, because Will Stacey, who had a great result yesterday as a solo driver in the 45-minute Enduro, this car has done plenty of laps this weekend. Surely we'll be heading for the pit lane. Can they sort this problem out at speed?
And there's the 2nd place, or the new 2nd place car then, which is the 86 car of Joseph Marshall. Into the pits then goes number 49, Will Stacey, the Rob Boston Racing. Entered Lotus Elise. Now, is this something that the team can work on? Certainly you would think. Hopes of victory rapidly fading, because they were not so long ago just a few hundredths behind the race leader Carl Swift. That's the number 12 car going through, which is Scott Parkin, now just outside the top 10, but 2nd in Class B in that VW Golf. It's still Chris Freeman leading in that class, number 14 in 9th place overall. But there's our race leader, and now he's got an advantage of something like 16 seconds over 2nd place, Joseph Marshall.
Headlights flashing from Carl as he reaches the end of the hangar straight. I noticed he skated right over the top of the curbing to the inside of the circuit as well as he headed onto the hangar straight. So it's a delicate balance as to how hard you push, particularly in the early stages with curbs, sausage curbs as well. And at least one car, as we were hearing earlier on, has come a cropper because of the sausage curbs. So conversations need to be had, and quickly, here between Will Stacey and the rest of the team. It'll go up on its internal jacks, and we're hearing it's some sort of drivetrain problem, maybe even drive shaft itself. Look at that massive rear diffuser on the back of the Lotus Elise of Stacey and Rob Boston. But lots of mileage, as I was making the comment, Ian, already done by this Lotus, and maybe it's getting a little bit tired now, because a drive shaft problem is never going to be solved in race.
No, it's not. So the fact that the pit stop had to be made just before the pit stop window opens as well is pretty academic, I suggest there. The pit window should be opening about 15 seconds from now, and then drivers can start if they wish to make their mandatory stops. They have to do so before then the 15-minute mark remaining is reached, and each of those stops has to be 3 minutes at least, plus any success penalties that have to be served. So it's worth mentioning that Carl Swift has a 30-second penalty to serve. Well, he's already 17 seconds clear of anybody else, and we're only half an hour into the race. So I don't think that necessarily would hold that Area Motorsport Seat back from taking the overall victory today. We're seeing the Grice car go through. That is still in 10th position, number 27. That will improve, of course, as the Stacey and Boston car starts to tumble down the top speeds, which it now does.
Also just caught sight of Andrew Rath, who is competing in another Seat. Many of the Leon TCRs on display this weekend and competing well. So Rath is 11th currently. And yes, the car that's now in the pit lane has cycled out of the top 10 as we would have expected it to have done, but it takes about a lap for pit stoppers and lengthy pit stoppers to be taken away from current timing. Meanwhile, the 86th second position for Joseph Marshall, threading its way now through the right and left of the early part of the lap, and through the link road onto the Hanger Straight again. He's still ahead of Ben Rushworth. That gap stands at about a second on the Hanger Straight. And further back into the traffic, lights flashing for Alan Henderson's Lotus, the low-slung car behind the BMW on the Hanger Straight in fourth.
Yes, so Henderson... is that a haze of smoke I just saw behind it? I'm not quite sure. I was just about to say it's been a bit more reliable today than it was yesterday, because it didn't disappear down the order and out of the race yesterday. But if you can already see the smoke, does that still count as a commentator's curse? I'm not quite sure. Anyway,
well, if you're saying everything's fine when it blatantly isn't, then I would suggest it is still a commentator's curse. But I think Alan's okay. No, actually, I might go back on that. I wonder whether it was maybe a heat haze, but I think it's slightly more serious than that.
We'll wait and see.
Indeed.
We'll wait and see what transpires with that car. I see that Luke Brow's car's up into 13th position now. That's the car that spun at Abbey on the opening lap of the race, so they've had to fight their way back from sort of relatively lowly position. That's the Stowmarket Glass entered BMW, which you could briefly see in the back of your shot there. There it is, that's the green car with the black bonnet just ahead of the Porsche Cayman being driven at the moment by Steve Houston. He's a former champion in Club Enduro. Let's not forget. There's the two car of Ben Rushworth though, who started racing in 2014, a Metro champion, a Hot Hatch champion as we've said. He's raced in MGBs as well. And he's at the moment still trying to find a way past Joseph Marshall, as he has been doing for much of the last half hour or so really. And Rushworth in the lead of the race, the 86 car going through in second place overall at the moment. That's the Joseph Marshall and Gary Townsend car. I think that might be the first appearance of the season for that car. Just looking down my results, yes, I think it is the first time we've seen that particular car out there. So another addition to the grid in the form of another Seat / Cooper Leon. And acquitting themselves very well at the moment. He did well to qualify well up the grid. Rushworth there in third place. They're just lapping. Is that the 60 car back into the race?
I think it is,
yes,
yeah,
it
the
is.
968's return to the race.
Yeah. So that's still in the hands of Callum Lockie, I think, who's starting that car. So it should be actually a relatively quick machine with the very experienced GT champion, I think he was in there.
Yeah, Marcus Mantz's days, early 2000s, British GT.
That's right, yeah.
With that fabulous paint scheme, a sort of highlighted yellow, orange and blue.
Yes.
very good days of the British GT Championship, but it's great to have that little Porsche back out on track. I'm also watching Alan Henderson's times. They're getting longer and longer. So I'll watch that with concern as we head to the pits. And Chris.
Well, Will Stacey, absolute heartbreak. Can you tell us what the problem was?
We think the drive shaft went when we were going around. Yeah, I was catching up with Carl, and all of a sudden it started vibrations. And I thought, oh, it's going to get worse every lap, and it did get worse every lap. And after about 10 laps, I caught up to back of Carl, but I was going slower because of it. And then after that point, it just had it. Yeah, it just had it.
Well, I mean, you had a bit of a difficult start. Obviously, the cars around you a little bit more power on the opening lap, but you were coming back at them really well.
Yeah, they've got a lot more speed, so they just fly past. And once they passed, you have to overtake them in going into the last section, because then you can get a gap on them through the next section. So by the time you get to the straight, you're far enough ahead. If you do them in the last section, in sort of the beginning of the track, they'll just have you down the straight.
Well, Rob Boston, the team boss, hasn't quite given up hope just yet. Obviously, your co-driver for today as well. Normally you're running solo, but you got Rob in the car today. He hasn't quite given up on this race just yet.
No, we think it might be fixable. So they're working at the moment. We may get a few laps out there, you know. Not for position, but it'll still be a few laps.
Well, we wish you all the best. We'll let you go in case you need to get ready. But in the meantime, let's go back to you, Ian and Johnny.
Thank you, Chris. Just under 90 minutes of the race left to go. That's the 92 car of Phil Knibb making its way around. That car qualified 13th. There's actually Andrew Rath in that car at the moment. There's the 12 car of Scott Parkin. He is at the moment rounding out top 10, second in Class B. Behind Chris Freeman, number 14 in the area motorsport car. Chris, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in the championship in Class B, but he did win the last of the rounds in Club Enduro. That was at Snetterton about 3 weeks ago. So he's the fourth man in Class B. Class C, by the way, that's still with Johnny Hayes and Paul Subiani in the number 66 BMW from number 33, John Monroe's Mazda, and D'Alessano in the number 53 BMW, rounding out the top three within that class at the moment.
To the inside of Andrew Rath will go the second place car of Joseph Marshall, and almost thinking about a very different line into Abbey was Ben Rushworth in the background. So don't confuse all of these Cupras to be on the same lap. In fact, that is the Rath car getting lapped by the second and third place cars. I'm a lot more comfortable with Alan Henderson's pace now, because he's just done his best lap of the race, I should say, a 1:12.34. That was done on the previous lap to the one just completed. So Alan Henderson's 1:66 Lotus Elise S2. If the problem's not hit yet, that's great news, because the pace is clearly still there. I just hope it's not a kind of delayed reaction. Now very busy on the hangar straight, as darting to the inside is Ben Rushworth of the number 12 VW Golf, and safely by just before Stowe.
Yeah, indeed. So still lots of jostling for position here as we are now into the pit window. I suspect we won't see too many people making a mandatory pit stop just yet. They may well roll the dice and see if we get a safety car, which might be a good time to make a stop there. You can see the thick black smoke coming out of the number 12 car, just to confirm the fact that it is a TDI rather than a GTI, that one, the diesel engined Golf. It does go pretty well, although it is putting out its own smoke screen at the moment for those behind it.
Yes, evoking memories of the VW Racing Cup, I suppose, from a few years ago. We had all sorts of, well, VWs of all descriptions, but particularly different types of Golf, the R32, the diesel powered, the petrol powered as well. So belching black smoke. However, Scott Parkin is in 10th position and able to lap at similar pace to those in front as well as behind, so that's not necessarily a final finishing position for Scott Parkin. There is, though, this difficulty for, is that still the treble eight?
The treble eight car.
So it got going again.
Yeah, well, it somehow made its way back to the pit lane anyway, so the team are working on that, which is encouraging at least that it might get back out into the race for the second half. That McGann, it's nice to see that shape of car out on the grid. It is the car owned by Graham Price and prepared by Pure Track. Had various different drivers in in it during the course of this season so far. That Scott Parkin Golf we're looking at a moment by that is an ex-VW Club car. It was run by Slide Sports originally. It's in 270 brake horsepower TDI trim, so prepared by Darkside Motorsport, who are specialists in diesel engined cars. Is that the 98 car? That's the car going a bit slowly for Rory Baptiste and Tim Harlan. That was off a few laps ago, wasn't it? That's fourth in class at the moment. Second and third's coming towards us, a little bit more spread out than they have been for most of the race, actually, about a second and a half between them. Then next on the road is that 66 car of the class leading BMW class C leading car, which was started by Johnny Hayes on this occasion. So it will have to serve a 10-second penalty at its pit stop to the halfway point through the race. So it turns its way onto the straight. There's the 12 car that's now into the pit. Now this could well be from mandatory stop, of course, because we are now into the pit lane window. It's a mandatory 3-minute stop, so there doesn't look like there's any particularly feverish activity there, Johnny. They're just trying to keep things as cool as possible.
Yeah, plug the laptop in, make sure all of the data is favourable, that the readouts are producing the data that is expected, rather than any issues with sky-high engine temperature, for instance. There is the need for fuel in this stop, though, as well. So that's now going in via the rear passenger window, where the dump churn has been attached. Tyre pressures, I'm sure, have been taken as well. No need for a driver change, because Scott Parkin is tackling this 2-hour and 5-minute race all on his own. He started 17th. He's gained good ground to make his first stop from 10th position.
Yeah, driver has to be out of the car while the refuelling is going on. You can see Scott there just standing to the right while one team member fueled the car, another was standing by with the fire extinguisher. That's a requirement. All teams must have that kind of setup for safety reasons in the pit lane. Hopefully fire extinguisher is never required, but good to have it there should it be necessary to call it into action. It's closed up again for second place, hasn't it, between Joseph Marshall and Ben Rushworth. They're just lapping actually that Tolden Commodore of Matty Taylor and Will Ashmore. It's still Matty Taylor at the wheel of car number 46 at the moment. That's a 2009 Holden Commodore, by the way, with a 6.2 litre V8 engine. It's an ex-Bahrain supercar, so it's been raced. The car that's raced in the Middle East previously.
Interesting. There were some V8 supercar races held at Bahrain a good few years ago now, but probably a car more so based in the Middle East and raced there frequently. Made its way to the UK and provides an even more varied field for us today in the TEGIWA Club Enduro. So still fairly early on in this race as one of the McGann slows up now. I'm sure that was the treble 8.
It is the treble 8, yeah.
Returned to the racetrack. So still not sure how the McGann got back to the paddock, whether that was via the external and then internal roads, or whether it was able to fire up under its own steam and make its way back to the pits. But the team have worked on it very quickly, and great to see it back into the race. Just in the background there, emerging at Farm. 86, Joseph Marshall from number 2, Ben Rushworth. Second and third in this all-Cupra dice. Remember, it's a Cupra that leads as well in the hands of Carl Swift.
A spinner down here at Abbey, and it's Luke Browse that's gone around for the second time. So yellow flags waving there. You can see the car recovering back into the race. Lights are flashing on Joseph Marshall's car because he is keen not to be held up here by slower cars. He's got the Scirocco ahead of him with Yvonne Hufelar, and Steve Compton will drive that car later on. So they're both clear of that now, but they're catching a car that will be similar in pace than, I think, Mark Rice in that Audi, which had its disastrous qualifying session. That car is lapping, or has been lapping the 113s. These have been lapping the 1 minute 12, so it'll be a bit tougher, I think, for them to get past this particular back marker. Be interesting to see if Rice chooses to make it easy for them or not.
tail of the Joseph Marshall car, stepping out a little bit as he turned in at Abbey, so he needed to collect a slight slide and a cleaner run for Ben Rushworth through that sequence of corners. Right-hander at Abbey, left-hander at Farm, and then you really do decrease the speed to get through Village. And actually Mark Grice did the gentlemanly thing there to allow these two fellow TCR cars through. That Audi is not on a similar speed to the second and third place cars, although it's still not. Oh, it's dramatically slowing. That's the reason.
It's on the grass there, yes, and is it going to pull off? While we're looking at that, I was looking at our CCTV, which shows the 12 car still in the pit lane, that Golf. Now, it's a 3-minute stop, but that feels like we've had more than 3 minutes now. There it is, and they have got the bonnet open. They were looking very calm and relaxed a few moments ago. They're now looking a little bit more concerned under the bonnet. I could see Bob Blackmore, one of our scrutineers, our chief scrutineer indeed, keeping an eye on what's going on as well. But it looks like what was a very relaxed pit stop has now become a somewhat dramatic one for the car that was second place in Class B.
Some of the superficial bodywork, that grille has just been unclipped. Are they bothered about engine temperature? Maybe the radiator, which will sit just in front of the engine there, but all enclosed within what is a large front bumper on a modern-day VW Golf. Are all the tyres still inflated on this Audi number 27 for Mark Grice? They appear to be, but remember this car had some woe this morning, when whether that was a turbo failure or something else crucial, which pumped out a huge amount of white smoke out of the rear of the car, and it had to be pulled off the road on the Hanger Straight. It's not a tyre issue, I'm fairly confident in saying, but the 27 is heading into the pit lane. We know a little bit more about the 12 car, Ian.
Yeah, it's a sensor issue, I think, that's causing the issue. Sometimes when you get that, there's nothing particularly mechanically wrong with the car, but the sensors are giving something that's a bit misleading, a bit confusing, and that in its own right means that effectively an electronic issue means that the car can't operate as it usually should. So that's a shame for the Darkside Motorsport team, because they are still in the pit lane now, even as we speak. So we're looking at the two Leons heading their way down. One of those was the Andrew Rath car, and the other is the 15 car, which is Phil Drybrough, the other former British GT driver. Is he a GT champion as well, I think, Phil Drybrough?
Yeah, possibly.
In his class, possibly, but yeah, he's gone through. There's the 27 car now into pit lane as well, so into the pit garage has gone Mark Rice. And we'll see if that car's going to be back out again later on, but some work to be done if it is to get back out into the race.
I certainly remember Phil in Works Aston Martin, so Aston Martin Racing prepared Vantages. So yes, this difficulty for Mark Grice's Audi TCR less obvious than the issue for yesterday, or no, this morning, wasn't it? It's been a long day, feels like yesterday, but actually this morning when these cars qualified. Might be drive shaft again, we're hearing. So we had the drive shaft issue for Will Stacey's Lotus Elise, and this time they're focusing on the other end of the car, this being a front-wheel drive TCR Audi.
Yeah, again, that sort of makes some kind of sense with how we saw that unfold, really. The car suddenly slowing and then taking to the grass, so some kind of issue with the drive shaft, as you say, would make sense with what we saw there. So an hour and 16 minutes to go. There is the number 5 car, which is that of Jonathan Packer, who is a bit further back in Class B than we often see him, because he's second in the Class B standings, and he won the opening race of the season as well, did Jonathan, as far as Class B was concerned. That was the race at Donington Park on Easter Monday. So he's a little bit further back down the order, in 25th position overall, and perhaps 7th or 8th at the moment in Class B. So let's give a quick rundown on the order before we get too many cars coming into the pits, because we might well have that at any moment now. It's number 1, the race leader, that's Carl Swift. In second place it's number 2, that's Ben Rushworth. In third place it's number 86, that's Joseph Marshall. So Rushworth didn't make it ahead of Marshall in the end. Fourth at the minute is the 166 Lotus of Alan Henderson. In fifth place is number 15, Phil Drybrough in the Leon. Sixth, another one, that's Matthew Wallace in car number 6. Seventh is the Class B leader, number 14, Chris Freeman. Eighth is number 92, Andrew Rath, even in another Leon. Ninth is the 51 car of Luke Handley. He's second in Class B in the Golf, and 10th is number 13 Steve Hewson in the Porsche Cayman. And some remedial work being done on the bonnet of the number 69 car. Now that is the car that's going to be in for its driver change as well. Matthew Hampson is going to hand over to Andy Schultz here, who is the quicker of the two drivers. So that car was running where in the order? Just having a look, down to 14th. It's also got a 5-second penalty as well. That will be for exceeding track limits, that car as well. But Andy Schultz will go back out into the race and see how far up the order he can get now with added accessory on the front to keep the bonnet from flapping open.
Yeah, it might be what you used to do with your suitcase before a flight, to tie it up to make sure it doesn't pop open at any point during the journey. So that's strapped now to the front of the BMW. That is a quick car because Andy Schultz qualified that 4th position earlier on in the day. Car 69 did a 1:12.445. Would have put him right behind, did put him right behind Joseph Marshall and in front of Alan Henderson's Elise S2. So there is chance for the number 69 BMW to gather places back again in the closing hour and 15 minutes. A couple of cars streaming across the line, including the Clio Cup of Simon Mason. And also heading into the right-hander, back with now Ben Rushworth, still in, well, up to second position, having made the move on Joseph Marshall.
Absolutely right. So I'm going to touch wood as I say this, but we've not yet had a safety car interruption. We had 2 in the space of the 30-minute qualifying session. Very sideways moment. I think that's for Jonathan Packer there in the number 5 car. But we have not had one yet, so we'll see if we do get one. But if we do now, I would predict that we will have a flurry of activity in the pit lane. No restriction in this championship on when you can take your pit stops, in the sense that you can do so in a caution period. Some championships don't permit that for safety reasons as much as anything else. So the 166 car go through, that's Alan Henderson in 4th position. There's Judy McBride and Jonathan Barrett. So both of those BMWs made early stops. It's good to see them both back out in the race. Judy McBride in the 67 car is actually 18th overall, so he's only 4 laps off the lead. Jonathan Barrett is another 10 laps behind him in 31st position overall. But great to see both of those cars back out in the race, including that of Jonathan Barrett, number 7, because the man from Tunbridge, who is 50 years of age, financial analyst, started racing back in, I think, 1999, and so I think it means 2019. Won Class 3 in the Britcar Trophy and was second overall in the trophy in 2020. In 2021 did some Club Enduro and road sports races, and this is a former BMW Car Club Racing Championship car from Class M2. So they're having a nice little scrap, although they're both multiple laps off the pace.
Yeah, and I would think that Barrett and his team chose to park the car for a little while so that the engine temperature eased back, and now they'll give another push at it. But the question is, have they solved what was causing that overheating, or will it require another break somewhere in this final 70-odd minutes that we've got? Ran up a bit wide there, coming out onto the hanger straight, onto the grass, and that might present the opportunity to overtake, not for position. So 2 BMWs diving to the right-hand side, but these are quick cars and in very much false positions. Barrett all the way down in 31st, unfortunately for him. Just behind him, the 31 car of probably still Moraes. Yeah, Mike Moraes started the Leon Cooper R, number 31, will be handing to Andy Chapman for the second half.
Yeah, those 2 that we just saw, lapping the 1 minute 15s, which is pace that would probably put them lower end of the top 10, or maybe sort of 11th, 12th, 13th kind of territory, had they not had those dramas in the very early stages of this race, actually. So there's the 13 car, that's Steve Hewson in the Intelligent Money, who also sponsors the British GT Championship. They also support the Porsche Cayman, driven by Steve Hewson here. Matt Fazy it is that will share that car and take over for these later part of the race. They're 3rd in Class B now, because Luke Handley has got up now to second within Class B, so he's gradually made his way back through in the area motorsport car after that poor start, and he is a fair distance behind Chris Freeman in the lead of that class. And I think, Luke, just checking the details, he's going to have to serve a 10-second pit stop penalty compared to 20 for Steve Houston, so he'll get further ahead. But Chris Freeman, who's the car ahead of him, has a 30-second penalty to serve, so that could sort of turn things upside down effectively within the Class B standings after you've had the mandatory stops.
Good speed on that lap being shown by the car shared by the Browse family. BMW E46 M3 GTR for car number 22, 11th position, but not very far away from that car's fastest lap of the race last time around with Fazy currently. So, hour and 9 minutes still to go. Carl Swift with this 25, nearly 26-second advantage. Only 4 seconds separate Ben Rushworth from Joseph Marshall in second and third, though. Alan Henderson's Lotus, despite giving us clues of a problem, is just heading through Abbey Corner now. Full song for him. And Phil Drybrough, having completed 44 laps, will be due across the line in the next few moments. But he is a bit further back. Now, how far in front of the number 6 car of the Wallaces is Drybrough's car? Is that a battle we need to keep our eyes on? Actually, they're lapping in similar speeds, 1:13, the high 1 minute 13s, and the gap, in fact, from Drybrough to Wallace is fairly vast.
I'm delighted to report that there are people at Brands Hatch watching us. I can see our live stream on the screen there at Brands Hatch, where I think there's some other racing going on there today. Not quite sure what that's all about.
No clue whatsoever.
But that's good to see that we're being shown down at Brands Hatch as well. I heard the other day, I can't remember who it was that told me, but when we were at Pembrey, you and I, Johnny, back in June, for some reason, and I don't know quite how or why this would have happened, our commentary from Pembrey was being played out at Snetterton on that
on a big screen?
Well, no, just on the PA, bizarrely.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Okay, so cross wire somewhere in the system. Did that improve the situation for the Snetterton spectators?
I expect it would.
Yeah, massively so.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Never heard of Dibeny, though, in Norfolk.
No, completely different language for them. Anyway, back to Silverstone and what's going on here. We're getting towards the halfway mark of this race, about 6 minutes away from that, and still no real influx into the pit lane yet. I can see one car, I think, in pit lane down in the distance. Not sure who that is. Not sure if it's one of the front runners just yet. We'll see if we can pick that up in a minute. But still, it's Carl Swift leading by about 25 seconds from the Ben Rushworth number 2 car in second place, and the Joseph Marshall car in third place is another 30-second back.
Yeah, but the more likely place change for second, no doubt about it, but actually Ben Rushworth, having got ahead of Joseph Marshall and worked very, very hard to do that, is now opening up a big margin on Joseph Marshall. So I think that is a decision by the crew running car 86 to ease back a little bit, take care more so of the tyres, and also thinking about fuel burn perhaps. You can put fuel in to these cars and in a minimum time stop as well. That shouldn't necessarily be a concern. This is a really good fight between two BMW E46s. The 67 car rather heading onto the hangar straight now of Julian McBride ahead of Jonathan Barrett. It'd be great to see Barrett further up the order in a more rightful position, but he's been battling overheating problems from the start.
There is the Will Stacey and Rob Boston car. It's somewhere out on the circuit. It's going slowly, but at least it is back out on the circuit, but I suspect possibly for not too much longer. Let's head down to the pit lane. Chris Stevens is there once again.
I'm down at the Army Motorsport garage where Matty's just got out of the car, left a couple of very nice black lines behind you as well. You came in with some gusto.
Yeah, I got in trouble already. Not to worry. Yeah, it was a little bit hot. The pit lane's shorter than you think when you're this close up the garage is. And yeah, the boys flagged me in. I'm like, make sure I know where I am. And still locked up and nearly hit them, but it's okay, it's all good.
Other than that, how was the first stint?
It was good. We're locking pace. I'm not sure why. it just feels really slippery out there overall. So I really did struggle to get pace. I could get it down to a lap time. I could do that lap time every single lap. I couldn't go no quicker, and I'm not sure why. A couple of seconds off pace.
So you got your teammate in the car now. What are you expecting for the rest of the race?
So I think Will will be able to gain a few seconds. He tends to be able to get that little bit quicker when the car is as it is now, which is difficult to drive. And hopefully we can keep pushing and stay on the podium for the Clubman Cup.
All right, well, we wish you all the best in that. Let's go and have a word with Dougie as well from the team. Dougie, this team is made all up of servicemen and veterans. You guys train had to be the ultimate unit, and it kind of goes hand in hand with motorsport.
Yeah, so that's right. So we're made up of regulars, reserves, and we've got some veterans in the team as well. We do this on our weekends as such because it's motorsport. But yeah, ultimately we do this as our team event that we do as Club Enduro as the team that we come together as the army. We do our own stuff as well individually, but this is the ultimate team where we can all get together and have a good time. So.
How long have you guys been doing this now?
So we're doing Club Enduro now. This is our third proper season in Club Enduro. We started off with Matty's BMW and Will's Honda Civic, then they moved on to the Holden Commodore. And then last year we had a bit of an incentive to try and get a bit more performance out of the car, and it just didn't work out quite reliability. But they've got that on the ball this year. The car's doing really well. The boys are doing really well in the car. They've got a good seat time in it. So we're just looking forward to push it even further and strive for them results. So we're currently leading the Clubman Championship as well, so we're looking to hold that this weekend and see if we can take it forward to the next round.
And what are the plans for the future of the team? Stay in Club Enduro, try and do some more things?
Yeah, absolutely. The team's always expanding, so we get bigger and bigger every year. Some come, some go, depending on what you want to do. But this is the heart and soul of the team when it comes to the team event. So this is where we're all strive to be here, and this is like the pick of the crop when it comes to the team, shall we say.
It's great stuff. Thanks for your time, Dougie. Great atmosphere down here at the Army Motorsport team. Let's go back to you, Ian and Johnny.
Yeah, and we are pretty much at halfway now, just about a minute or so away from the midway point of the race. The Lotus, as we just saw there on the screen, is still circulating, so to get back out into the race, it is how far down the order? Just looking for, yeah, 33rd position and about 19 laps off the race lead now. I assume it's probably Rob Boston in the car as well now for this second phase of the race, but we'll see how it performs. Its last lap was a 1:12, so not too shabby.
No, because it's best a 1:12.01. It's just done a 12:36 and a slightly slower lap next time by, but that cost it, well, 15 minutes or so, 17 minutes, and that's to the next car in the race, isn't it? So even further back, when you bear in mind the overall leader has just ticked off 51 laps, that little Lotus has only done 32, so about 20 laps lost during that pit stop. By the sounds of things, they've changed a full drive shaft though on that car, so no mean feat to be able to do it in race. I suggested that wouldn't be possible.
Yeah. So great effort from the team there. And that 12:01, which is the best lap of that car, is also the best lap of the race. Faster even than Carl Swift in the lead. And also it's a lap record as well, because the previous lap record was held by Alan Henderson. That was set here last August to 1:12.33. So a very quick lap indeed. And also having gone under the lap record is Carl Swift with a 1:12.09, and Alan Henderson actually has equalled his own lap record at a 1:12.33, but he just can't quite go any quicker.
Yeah, I'd spotted that as well. I wonder whether he was that was the Delta time really set 12 months ago that he was asked to match by the team, but would like to chisel away another few tenths really to find the pace that Carl Swift has been offering. 52 laps now done. We might get north of 100 laps depending on what sort of pace Rob Baker can offer, I suppose. And also we haven't yet had that two-word phrase I should say that you mentioned a little time ago. I'm not going to even utter the SC.
You're not going to mention it?
No. But that will obviously then scupper our chances of getting into 3 digits for the number of laps completed.
Yes, it will. Have you mentioned that Henderson was ahead of Marshall now? I don't know if we had or not. There is the Marshall car number 86 on screen now, down to 4th position then. And had been in 2nd for quite some time. He's certainly very keen to get the back markers out of the way, isn't he, Joseph Marshall? Flashing his headlights at them on coming through. As if the Marshall's blue flags aren't quite enough to persuade the back markers to make the passage of the front runners a little bit more straightforward. Of course, it's the obligation on the quicker cars to pass safely rather than the slower cars to leap out of the way. So just about an hour left to go this race. They're still at it, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Barrett and McBride have been doing this for probably 10 or 15 minutes now. They're about 10 laps apart, but they're lapping in remarkably similar lap times. McBride's now 14th overall, and the Barrett car is now up to 29th, with another couple of cars having got into strife.
Have they got a bit too close for comfort as well? Because now the front left wheel arch of Barrett's car has worked its way loose, so that's starting to flap a little bit. Now, one of the key Cupras is peeling off. That's 86, isn't it? Joseph Marshall. He was trying to marshal his own race not too long ago and wanting to flash the lights in addition to the blue flags, as you were making the point. But this will be Gary Townsend to take over. Oh, there is more contact if they'd been already, and out of club corner, despite there being many laps between these two BMWs. Julian McBride spinning out of there. Pretty sure they did touch, although only caught the back end of the incident, Ian.
And look where it's ended up, in the gravel trap, Johnny. I wonder what that might lead to.
There was a bit of movement from the BMW, but all that's going to do is bury the rear tyres further into the gravel. A horrible place to be sitting. And yes, the clerk of the course will take one look at that, I think, and utter the word safety car. But we haven't yet had that decision made for us. We'll give Julian a bit longer to get out of the gravel trap, but he's very deep in there, and he's a few metres away from hard standing.
There's no sign of movement there in particular, is there, in terms of plugging out? Marshall has rushed over just to check that Julian is all okay, to pass on some instructions to check whether the car is running or not. I suspect the answer is that it will need mechanical assistance to get out of there. So we've got yellow flags there at the moment, which makes life interesting for the likes of Ben Rushworth, who's just tucked up behind the slightly slower BMW at the moment, and also the 10 car, which is the Class B Lotus, which is Fenix car running in 13th position.
Through the green flag, though, which actually sits a few metres away from the start line. So Abbey, you are able to overtake, and quite a bit of that was happening into the first corner. Ben Rushworth there, the number 2 Cupra, absolutely leathering the curb, and a big squeal of tyres as he landed back onto the ground. At least a couple of wheels up in the air there, with a violent run over the link curbing. He's cleared all the traffic though, Ben Rushworth, arriving at Stowe with an open road in front of him.
Yep, so still we have the marshal on the scene at the exit of Club, where Julie McBride's car is. We'll see if there's going to be any kind of intervention. You can see the yellow triangular LED displays there, showing in effect a yellow flag. Problem there is he's also right over the timing line. You can see the transponder receiver there, which puts the line across the track. So it's really not helping Terry Stevens and his team of timekeepers do their jobs either, I shouldn't have thought.
No, but we are still getting all the times coming in, so that's good news. It might be that the BMW is just in front of the tripod. The foreshortening of the camera often plays that trick. Now, Julian's got back into the car, has he not?
Is that because they were expecting someone to sort of come and tow that car out? I'm looking to my left to see anything. Yes, so we'll just wait and see if there's any movement, as that's the race leading view. Is that a bit of trim here hanging off the race leading car? I'm not sure if I've noticed that before on the Carl Swift Seat. Julie McBride, is a driver that has had some particularly serious injuries in the past. He is a sales director by occupation, but he is officially disabled with a spine injury, so he has to drive with modifications to the car. He details a lot of what those are, and he's also had an accident about 3 years ago. He smashed his leg into many pieces, 10 pieces the femur, so he's had to have that pinned and plated as well. So Julian McBride, someone who is disabled, but hopefully his car will be recovered before too much longer. 55 minutes of the race left to go here. And again, a sprinkling, like about 3 or 4 cars in the pit lane at the moment. Not sure we've seen any of the other front runners just yet, though, John.
I suppose the thinking here is to allow everyone to go by Julian's stricken car and be aware that it is there. The exit of Club Corner is still covered by probably double waved yellows, so the advice there is slow down and be prepared to stop if necessary. And it might be that it can just be left there with local yellows until that car can be recovered. There'll be a snatch vehicle somewhere on the way, but tricky thing is, how close to Club Corner is that? Is it stationed? So it might take a bit of time, but I mean, the wish will be to get Julian back in the race if possible.
There's a car gone spinning off in the background there at the link. It's the number 5 car of Jonathan Packy, who was 17th overall, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in Class B. Luke Handley having taken the Class B lead now, because I think Chris Freeman must have made his pit stop, because he's dropped down a little bit now. He was in the lead of Class B, number 14, Chris Freeman, so I've not particularly seen his pit stop, but I assume that he's made it.
Marshall's back in attendance to Julian McBride, having a chat to him through the window. Never really liked seeing Marshals, though, in a gravel track with a car, and cars coming through Club Corner at speed, despite their having ample warning that something's going on around the corner. And generally, now that we've gone into the second phase of the race, so second drivers having taken over, then new drivers won't be presented with this sort of strange situation with the second pilots already in the cars. Want to try and stay green for as long as possible, yes, though, of course, because a safety car this far into an endurance race really does present us with a false order and a false scenario within the competition.
It does. We saw Rob Boston on screen there in the Lotus. He's still lapping in the 1 minute 12, up to 29th position now, still 19 laps off the lead, but lapping in very competitive lap times. And yes, driver Julian McBride is now out of the car, so possibly there was some thinking that they might get the car recovered with Julian in it, but that's now not going to be possible, I don't think. So he's out of the car and out of this one. Was that another moment for the 22 car of Luke Browse as well?
Yes.
That's had a few moments during the course of this race so far. I don't think he's yet handed that far a car even over to his father Paul.
Okay, so it was Luke that started, and Paul, yeah, still to come. That's helping their road position out, 6th place right now. We'll get an idea of how much time was lost just as soon as Luke crosses the line. He is often in the mid 1 minute 15s, similar to the Wallace and Wallace car in 5th position. Still Carl Swift leading by just under 30 seconds from Ben Rushworth. Cupra from Cupra as we head to Chris Stevens in the pits.
I'm down in the Team Brit garage with Yvonne Haufler, the brand new entry for this championship. How was the first stint?
I was a bit uncomfortable in the beginning. I drove this car on Friday for the first time. I never drove this layout till this morning, but I get used to it during the stints, and I'm quite happy. And I'm looking forward to the next one, and hopefully a bit more practice before, and then it will be good.
Both you and your teammate, utterly inspirational. You're racing with scoliosis, your teammate in a wheelchair as well. He's just getting in the car now behind us. I mean, what was the inspiration to come and do motor racing?
Well, I started go-karting when I was 7, and I had my back surgery when I was 13, and I just kept going. But I can't feel my legs, I can't feel what I'm doing. So when I was 15, I got my racing license with pedals still. And when I was 20, my health was going a lot backwards, and I thought, if I want to do this, I need to be competitive, otherwise I don't enjoy it. And then, well, I stopped, and I always had the dream to come back, but yeah, wasn't sure. And then I started sim racing 6 years ago, and 2 years ago professional, and I met my girlfriend with sim racing, and because of her, I started with Gran Turismo. came by E-Team Brit, the esports team from Team Brit. And they are gonna do a project, disabled sim racer to disabled track racer, and that's me. So a few weeks later I was in the car, driving on tracks. It's great. Yeah.
That's absolutely fantastic. Can you tell us, what kind of modifications does the team have to make to the car to make it suitable for both of you guys?
We're both driving with hand controls, so we do throttle and brake on the steering wheel. We have to kind of shift us, and that's what we're using for throttle and brake.
Really interesting. So, car's just gone back out there. What are you expecting for the rest of the day?
We just want to survive, finish the race, and on to the next one. We learn from this, and we need to learn a lot. So it's a good start.
Well, I'm sure I speak for everyone in the paddock when I say we wish you all the best of luck with your endeavours. In the meantime, let's go back to you, Ian and Johnny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. 50 minutes of the race left to go. We've had the Julia McBride car, but it's still in the process. It's just about now been recovered from the gravel trap at the exits of Club Corner, and so very shortly I would think we will go back to full unified racing. There you can see the snatch vehicle doing its work. So it certainly got the car up against the barrier, now into a much less exposed position. Now they just need to work out exactly where they're going to put it next. There is that 147 Team Brit car. It's now being driven by Yvonne's teammate Steve Crompton for the balance of the race.
Well, I understand entirely now why it is a fully orange colour, because Yvonne Hoefelaar, as you can hear from her voice, from the Netherlands, so delighted to have got her British racing licence at the back end of June, tweeting about that on the 30th and describing that to Chris as well. But a fantastic initiative to get drivers with certain mobility issues, as we've already spoken about with Julian McBride as well, into racing cars and competing like everybody else.
There's the Browse car into the pit lane, the Stowmarket Glass entry, so that will be Paul Browse taking over for the second half of the race. We'll see if he can keep up with Luke's tally of spins. Hopefully not for the second half of the race. And you can see a tyre change going on that car as well. There's the 49 car, that's Rob Boston, still lapping in the 1 minute 12, so he's doing really well here. But it's just about getting some laps times. There's a bonus point fastest lap as well, so that currently is heading the way of this particular combination too. But I'm not sure it's going to be enough actually to stop Rob Baker and Carl Swift wrapping up the Class A Championship today, with 2 more rounds to come. After this they go to Anglesey and conclude their season at Oulton Park.
So scoring points within Class A, but unfortunately for Rob and indeed teammate in the 49 car, Will Stacey, they're behind a big chunk of Class A cars. So a huge outscoring taking place for Carl Swift and Rob Baker in car number 1. It's a simple but very effective paint job on that Lotus Elise though, as it heads underneath one of our higher placed cameras through Club Corner and back across the grid hatchings to tick off another lap. Carl Swift's best time of 1:12.09, Rob Boston's 1:12.01, but as mentioned the Lotus down in 27th position. That's a pit stop for Ben Rushworth to hand over to teammate James Ramsden, so pitting from 4th place. Alan Henderson was only 5.9 seconds behind as Ben came in, so Alan will be up a spot now, running wide there. Another Lotus, that was the number 10 I think, running deep into Abbey Corner, and will recover that moment, but it wasn't crucially Alan Henderson who will be up to 4th position.
And I'm assuming Henderson has now made his pit stop as well, because he's gone back to 5th position, hasn't he?
Yes.
So I think he must have made his pit stop. There is the tail end of the pit stop between Steve Hewson and Matt Fazy. Matt Fazy now taking over the number 13 car, and that was the car that was second in Class B behind Luke Handley before the stops. This is a battle for Class C position. Indeed, It is the battle for the Class C lead at the moment, and it looks like the 53 car has just gone through to take the place away. That's Dan Orsano now, I think, still at the wheel of that car. I'm not sure if either of these have made their pit stops in actual fact. But Dan Orsano and Joel Oswick's car, that's the black car, has just got ahead of Johnny Hayes and Paul Subioni. They've just fallen back behind again. So the Class C lead very much up for dispute here. Behind, they're ahead, well, they're ahead of them is the number 6 car of Matthew Wallace as well. Johnny, what have you spotted?
Only that I think it's for second place in C rather than the race
I beg
lead.
your pardon, yes.
Because we've got a bit of a runaway leader.
Which is John Munro, so which suggests that John Munro's still out there and these two have made their stops then. Yes,
that would make sense.
That would make sense,
yeah,
yes.
So it will become the class lead as soon as we've seen a pit stop for car number 3.
Oh, there we are.
Perfect timing.
Right on cue. So that's John Munro out of the car and Nick Dougill into it. Nick from Northampton, the MRF tyre supplier, local driver, started racing in 2018 in Mazdas. MX-5s he's done most of his racing in and fitting the races in this TWP, the Wrexham University, and did Mazda MX-5 Mark III. So this now is going to be the battle, very shortly it will be, for the lead of Class C, which is for the cars of up to 180 brake horsepower per tonne. And at the moment it's Paul Subiani then, ahead of number 53, which will now be Joel Oswick.
Yeah, so Oswick, well, 0.3 of a second behind. It's probably even closer than that. He was at the start of the lap. Subiani, having completed 56 laps, along with the BMW behind him. And yes, the number 3 car, having made its stop, will certainly lose a lap, more likely 2, which will put that 3 car back on a level playing field, the Mazda MX-5 of these 2 BMWs. It will stream across the line very shortly. But this is definitely one to stay engaged with in the final 3/4 of an hour. Those yellow flags long being withdrawn now out of club corner. Quite pick up the pace, the second of the BMWs of Oswick coming out of club corner that time. So that's given Subiani some breathing space.
You see Rob Boston on screen there, and he's now into the 11s in the 1:11.76. Not on that last lap, but relatively recently he's done a 1:11.76. So well into the sub 60 or sub 72 second bracket now, extending the lap record. Don't get any more bonus points for it being a lap record rather than just a fastest lap, but nevertheless important points there potentially for the number 49 car, Will Stacey, and now Rob Boston.
Carl Swift leading by over half a minute over Colin Gillespie's number 15 car. Well, Phil Dryburgh more likely. We think the 15's not been in yet.
No, I don't think it can have been yet.
No, that's, I would buy that as well. Likewise, the number 6 car of Matthew and Simon Wallace still waiting for their mandatory pit stop.
Yeah, it's fairly usual for Carl Swift to stay out this long. He does the majority of the driving in this team. So they'll have to make the stop before 15 minutes remain. So in the next 27 minutes or so of this race. This battle for Class C, absolutely fantastic. Paul Subiani and Joel Oswick then in these 2 evenly matched BMW 3 Series cars, turning their way through the right-hander at Abbey. It's the 66 car of Paul Subiani. His teammate Johnny Hayes having already done the driving. There's the 53 car of Joel Oswick up the inside into Village, and he goes through the 20-year-old yesterday actually. Happy birthday for yesterday, Joel, from Cheshunt. He's a race technician, only started racing last year, did the British Karting Championships in 2017, and it's a naturally aspirated M52 engine 328i from 1995, prepared by Elite Works. Originally this car raced in the BMW Car Club Racing Championship, but they've obviously switched it to Club Enduro, and it's working very well for them in the Crown Paints livery car. So Crown Paints got into a bit of trouble with Jenny Eclair, didn't they, the other day? She wasn't happy with one of their adverts that they'd put out, but the Crown Paints car doing its talking on the track this weekend.
I doubt Jenny's actually here this weekend at Silverstone,
no.
So maybe they can get away with that for the time being. Oh, a bit of misunderstanding into Abbey corner between Rob Boston and the Holden Commodore there of Taylor and Ashmore, eventually giving one another track space, but the more manoeuvrable of those cars, the lighter weight you would think, was the Lotus, tucking up the inside and not exactly gaining the spot because it's lost so many laps earlier on. But another fastest lap of the race, I noticed, at 1:11.58 for Rob Boston, as we can head to Chris again down in pit road.
I'm here with John Munro from the Traction TWP racing team, the Mazda MX-5. How was that stint?
It was really good, yeah. I don't think I've ever had such a long first stint without a safety car, so I kept on waiting for one to come. It didn't happen. We would have actually run a little bit longer, but we had the fuel to do it, but we got a bit of a misfire, so I had to bring it in. We were losing maybe 2 or 3 seconds a lap, so I'm praying that we're still out there circulating okay right now, and stopping the cars cleared it. But no, it was really good. Made a good start, had a great battle with a couple of the BMWs for the lead of the class, and managed to get that lead at the beginning, but slowly the car behind reeled us in a little bit, and yeah, they just had too much pace for us in the end, so we could still see them the whole way, so we were sitting second, we could see the leader, but it was just not quite enough pace in the car. But then when they pitted, we were just praying for a safety car so that we could take advantage. It never came, but yeah, right now I'm going to assume we're either in first, second or third, so I'm hoping it's still going okay.
Well, Nick hasn't come in behind us just yet, so it looks all good for now. You guys are just about in the championship hunt, is that fair to say? Are you going to keep going for it?
Yeah, we're hanging on by a thread, but I think the nature of this series is, you know, if you get a couple of wins under your belt, if the other people have reliability issues, there's always a chance. But yeah, I'd say we just don't have the outright pace to win on merit. So if we do pick up a win, it's going to be through some other issues for others. So we'll do our best. But yeah, if we can at least try and pick up podiums for the rest of the season, that's kind of the main aim.
Awesome. You guys obviously supported by Traction. You've got some of the guys from Traction here this weekend as well. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically Traction's all about sim racing and racing games, and it's trying to build a community of people that love racing games as much as well I do and my colleagues do. So they support the team and the racing as well. We try and kind of create a synergy between real life and sim racing as well. And yeah, my full-time job is working for them, making videos and stuff like that. So we're making a video about this round here today and how it translates between real life and the sim. So yeah, it's really good fun. It's great to have them here, and it's great to also have them on the side of the car as well. Hopefully get a little bit of exposure through that too.
Sounds absolutely fascinating. Can't wait to check that out later. All the best for the rest of the race. Johnny and Ian, let's go back to you.
And the exciting news for John Munro is that Nick Dougal is still leading in Class C. So we thought, wrongly, that the Oswick and Subiani battle was going to be for the Class C lead after they'd made their stops, but that's not the case. It's Nick Dougal still leading in the TWP Racing Mazda MX-5 by 23 seconds. Now that has come down by 3 seconds on that lap though, so with 38 minutes of this race remaining, who knows, we could have a grandstand finish on our hands for Class C.
Yeah, there's about a second between the two BMWs that are doing the chasing now. Joel Oswick got the jump done on Paul Subiani, and we saw that when it happened, and Oswick presumably now in the 53 BMW is carrying a bit more speed than the chasing 66. Was that a bit of damage on the front of the 53?
I thought it looked like it might be,
a crumpled
yes.
bonnet,
yes.
Perhaps, but it's still moving, crucially, for Joel Oswick, but whether he's head-butted somebody else in one of the slower cars into perhaps Village, but purely speculation there. We'll wait and see when we grab another look of the 53 BMW, whether that's going to affect its lap speed.
Just looking at the standings, it looks like there's probably two cars, two series contenders that are still out there, not having made a stop. One is the race leader car, the other one is that one, 51. Luke Huntley looks doing a great job here of driving the car and also getting us the pictures of the right cars on screen at the right time in this race. Luke Costin, our Alpha Live director and producer, he is giving us the pictures. That's Luke Handley though, and there he is. You can see he's not got a 69 lap gap to the lead. He's 3 laps behind the race leader, Carl Swift. Swift has completed 72 laps. Handley has completed 69, but of course they are in different classes. The 51 car, both run by Area Motorsport. Rob Baker's concern though. The question is, has Luke Handley done enough in this long first stint to stay ahead when they go out for their pit stops? He's 2 laps plus, well, quite a lot of change, clear of Chris Freeman. 2 laps and 30 seconds clear of Chris Freeman. So that'd be touch and go whether Luke Handley would be able to stay ahead there. What did I say? He's got to serve as way of a penalty. 10 seconds. There's got to be 3 minutes 10 seconds stationary plus the in and out of the pit lane. It's going to be touch and go whether Luke Handley can stay ahead here when his pit stop comes. He's got 21 1 minute left to make it.
Outlaps just completed for Colin Gillespie, who's taken over now from Phil Dryborough, and the Wallace and Wallace car. So Matthew Wallace started it, Simon Wallace took that over in the recent pit stop for car number 6, which is the Seat Leon TCR, rejoining in 7th position. So the pit stops that we've been waiting for are now starting to happen. Luke Handley needs to be one of them, also keeping a close watch on Alan Henderson's pace. 3rd position, just on a 1:13.2, which is quite a bit faster than Luke Handley's speed in number 51, and Alan should be presented with 2nd place just as soon as Luke pits.
Yes, absolutely, but he's effectively 3 and a bit laps behind Carl Swift, which should be enough for Carl to get in, hand over to Rob Baker, and he'll get back out for the second half of the race, albeit they have to be stationary for 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so it'll be touch and go, but we should see Carl Swift hold on to the lead here from Alan Henderson once those stops are made. If not, that could be quite interesting as we go into the final stages of this race.
Was that the 53 BMW that the Lotus was briefly alongside? I'm trying to check out the damage, if there is any, on Joel Oswick's BMW. Might have been an optical illusion, of course.
Yeah, we've got the front end damage, I thought, on the 66 car, hadn't we? But that might have caused some damage on the 53 car as well. There's Matt Fazy going through in the Porsche. He's 3rd in Class B at the moment, 11th overall. There's the 53 car. Any signs of any damage anywhere on the Crown Paints car? Not really. It was the white car that we were looking at with the potential damage on it, though. That's the Subiani car. And there is the race leader into the pit lane. So it had to happen eventually, and it's happened with 34 minutes of the race to go. So one thing to check is actually Rob Boston comes back into the pits, possibly because he thinks that's it, we've done enough to get the fastest lap of the race there now. They've got down to a 1:11.58, and there's not much to be gained by continuing to circulate, or maybe there's got a problem with the car. But watching this car now, 3.5 minutes to stop the speed. Is Carl Swift going to get back in the car? It looks like Rob Baker is in there now. So Carl Swift's already out, Rob Baker is already in. Sometimes we've seen Carl Swift do the whole race on his own.
Well, that's not going to be happening this time around. So Rob, pressure on now, because Carl has spent almost an hour and a half building this lead. In fact, we have had a full hour and a half now, 33 minutes left on the clock, and Rob, I mean, presumably Rob's speed around Silverstone should be similar to Carl,
yes,
but not quite as quick.
Yeah, there's not a lot to choose between both of them. Both very experienced drivers, both pretty quick. Carl Swift, I think, I suspect, probably pays most of the bills for the racing, and therefore does most of the racing while Rob is running the Area Motorsport team. That's his customer, do the majority of the driving. There's not a lot to choose in pace between them.
Yeah. Well, for the moment, the number 1 car displaying its best lap of the race, which was an in-lap, and we know the reasons for that, because the timing loop falls earlier on the lap than it would do if you stayed on the track. So that will be addressed at a later date, as it were. Luke Handley still needing to serve a pit stop in car 51.
Yeah, but now he's only a lap behind, isn't he? So he was 3 laps behind at one point, so he's gradually unlapping himself, but he's then going to have to put 3 laps in it. But crucially, only 10 seconds behind Luke Handley is Alan Henderson, who has already made, we think, his stop. We didn't necessarily see it, but judging from how he sort of dropped down the timing screen, has gone climbed back up again, we think he has made his pit stop, Alan Henderson, in the number 166 car. If not, he's got 16 minutes left to do it. Apart from that, Luke Handley, we think, is the only other driver of any real note that still needs to make a pit stop here. Just looking in Class C again, it's still Nick Dougal ahead, but only now by 7 seconds ahead of Joel Oswick. So that's come down by 16 seconds in the last 5 or 6 minutes, hasn't it? So that's come down quite quickly now. So I think we might see a change for the Class C lead before too much longer. And interestingly, Joel Oswick now about 10.5 seconds clear of Paul Subiani in the 66 car. Those two were circulating as one for a little while.
Yeah, I've caught another sight actually of Subiani's white BMW as it headed through Abbey, and there's definitely a kink in the left side of the bonnet. It doesn't run actually from left to right, the full width of the car, But whether that's indicative of some contact, it's more severe than just a bonnet clip having failed.
And those are the two Class C leaders now, Nick Dougal and Joel Oswick in the same shot. They are going to be battling for the Class C victory as we head down to the pit lane and hear more from Chris Stevens.
Well, we've gone from one end of the international pits to the other end, to Carl Swift, the race leader. That is a mammoth stint you've just put in.
Yeah, it felt like it as well. It's quite warm in the car to say it's only mid-20s, but it felt like it was 40 degrees outside and 100 in the car.
Well, of course, we started out, it was quite chilly. Now we're in this glorious sunshine. It must be baking inside the car.
Yeah, it is warm, and the drinks is up to about 30, 40 degrees as well, so that's not very refreshing.
Oh, great. Well, obviously, Rob's just got in the car. Commentary team reckons you've got a chance of wrapping up the A-Class Championship today. So is that pressure on for you guys now?
Yeah, I mean, it's not maths we'd even done, to be honest with you, this early in the season. That's quite some bad luck, Stacey, so it seems to be back out now, see if they can keep it going and get some points and keep the fight alive. That'd be nice.
Cool. Obviously, you guys have won most of the races this season. Everything's going smoothly so far today. Can we expect this form to continue?
Fingers crossed. We just keep falling lucky with other people's reliability. It's a bit of a shame. It was coming good for a nice race with Will Stacey at the start, and then he had issues. Same happened at last meeting, so I'd just like to see someone else make it to the end at full pace.
Hopefully the guys will give you that fight, but in the meantime, it's all about Area Motorsport, and that's Say It Lee on TCR.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys. Let's go back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. There's the Holden Commodore, the Army Motorsport car that we're hearing about earlier on, with Chris in the pit lane speaking to Matthew Taylor, and also the team leader there of the Army Motorsport team. They are running in 13th position at the moment, the number 46 Holden that's just turning its way through. But there is the race leading car back out into the race, Rob Baker then. So he has done another lap and he is still in the lead of the race, but it's only now by 10.92 seconds from Luke Handley, who's yet to make his stop, 14.95 seconds back to Alan Henderson in the Lotus.
Yeah, so it's still a slight extension net of the race lead for Rob Baker over Alan Henderson.
Change of lead in Class C. It's gone the way of Joel Oswick now in the number 53 car. He's got ahead of Nick Dougal, and he's been closing at about 3 seconds per lap, so it was a matter of when rather than if he would get through. So that's good news for Joel Oswick and Dan Orsano, as they are a little bit further back in the points. Well, I say a little bit further back. There's only 2 points covering the first 4 teams, but this will put them into the lead of the Class C Championship. This one's definitely not going to be settled this weekend, unlike Class A.
And the next question is, can Paul Subiano catch up with the Dougal car, Dougal and Monroe Mazda? Because, again, it's a quicker lap time from Subiani, generally speaking. If the number 3 car, Nick Dougal, John Monroe, Nick Dougal now in the car, if he stays in the 122s, last time around, yeah, did a 121 actually, so marginally quicker. The BMW behind is able to lap more swiftly than that. Problem is, looking at something like a 13-second deficit currently, Subiani, to close in, and only got 27.5 minutes to do it.
Just looking at what might go on in Class B, because Luke Handley is still out there, as we've said, and he's second overall at the moment, but he has completed 76 laps. His nearest rival and his teammate, Chris Freeman, has completed 74 laps, so I think Luke Handley will lose the Class B lead when he makes his pit stop. Unless he gets lucky and there's a safety car and he can make the pit stop under that, which might change things slightly, but we've only got about 11 or 12 minutes to go before the pit lane window closes, so Luke Handley, I think, probably is going to lose the Class B lead, and it'll be a question of how far down he falls. Possibly he might go behind the Porsche Cayman of Houston and Fazy and down to 3rd place within the class.
Okay, so Chris Freeman looking a long way out of it at the moment in 10th, but there are only 3 laps between him, probably more like 2.5 in fact, to Luke Handley, who at the moment leads the B class. There is Nick Dougal then, having recently fallen to 2nd position in the number 3 Mazda. We're catching up with his teammate John Monroe not too long ago. MX5 then through Abbey Corner. ultimately trying to catch this 53 BMW, but a gap only going one way after good driving from Joel Oswick, building the gap to almost 5 seconds now.
Yeah, Joel Oswick's best lap, or the car's best lap, has been a 1:18.56. The best lap for the MX-5 has been a 1:20.41. So even with John Munro, the quicker of the two drivers at the wheel, it's sort of 2 seconds a lap difference between those two cars. So with 25 minutes to go, we've just got Luke Handley yet to make a stop. I don't think he's in the pit lane just yet. Can't see anybody at all in the pit lane just at the moment. So we'll see as and when he makes that stop. Already I can see that Rob Baker's settled into the 1:13s, that he's extended his gap back to Alan Henderson in the sort of about 3 laps that he's been out there. There's the 14 car of Chris Freeman, the car that stands to benefit from Luke Handley's pit stop within Class B. And there's the number 3 car of Nick Dougal, the TWP Racing Mazda. Obviously we've lost a few cars during the course of this race. I reckon we've perhaps lost 10 of them. I think we've still got 28 cars circulating. I think we had 38 to take the start of this race in the end. But a few have fallen by the wayside. The Leon Bidgeway Exceed, the Ryan Parkin and Daniel Sylvester Audi, that was an early retirement. Andy Marston's BMW, the Price and Miller McGowan, that got back out again, but seems to have retired again, that car. A car which we can't identify because it's not got the driver identified to the transponder, but Scott Parkin's Golf also out, so a dark day for the Darkside Motorsport team. Beach and Grice, of course, retired their Audi as well, so did Joe Williams in his Golf. And actually Roy Baptiste and Tim Harland, I'm not quite sure what happened to them, but they had at least one spin along the way as well. One of the Class C front-running drivers. Indeed, they were 3rd in the Class C Championship coming into this weekend. Class C very tightly contested indeed. It looks like it's going to be the 53 car that's going to take the Class C Championship lead after this weekend.
Just a second or so between Luke Handley owing us a pit stop and Alan Henderson, who has pitted, as to our knowledge, so we might even get an overtake on track before Handley comes down pit road, although there is now a car in the pit lane. Is that his Golf, I wonder, number 51?
I'm not sure it looks particularly Golf-like,
okay,
but I'm looking at it from about a quarter of a mile away, to be honest with you, so not quite sure on that. I don't know if we'll get a shot. It is the Golf in there, and yes, if I look on the CCTV I can see that it is the Luke Handley Golf. There it is, you can see it on your screens now as well. So he is, I think, probably the last of the drivers to make his pit stops. The Area Motorsport driver has to get out of the car while any refuelling takes place as well. Getting back into it now for the final 20 odd minutes of the race. Of course, he's got to make a stop of 3 minutes and 10 seconds stationary, so we just need to keep it on our time screens to see whether he drops behind certainly Chris Freeman and possibly also the Steve Houston and Matt Fazy Porsche.
So Alan Henderson had not got in front of Luke, I'm fairly confident in saying, before the stop was made. Had there been another lap, Luke stayed out again, that would have been pushing the pit lane window, possibly a bit too much for comfort, then we might have seen a direct race on track. But Alan Henderson, 25 seconds adrift of race leader Rob Baker. Last time around, actually, Alan's Lotus was able to lap marginally quicker than Rob, although Rob's reacted to that. Doesn't necessarily need to do it because he's got 25 seconds or so as this leading margin.
As Chris Freeman going through, behind him is the number 10 car, which is the Lotus, now being driven by Andy Shepherd. And through the shot there, I thought we could see the race leader, certainly, coming through. There's the Handley car in the Martins Volkswagen sponsorship. Luke soon will back out into the race. I think the team member there is just showing him the stopwatch of how many seconds he's still got to go before he can go back out into the race. Team filming the 60 car, the Porsche's come to a stop. I suspect this was Roger Coy now at the wheel of the 968, and it's looking a little bit smoky, isn't it, there? So it may well be that the 60 car is out of the race as well. I think it probably is. He was running in 28th position, having made a long stop earlier on in the race as well. So there's the 14 car of Chris Freeman. I'm just looking him. He's going to come through. He's going through to the link section of the circuit. So the question here is he going to get ahead of Luke Handley by the time Luke Handley is released from the pit lane? He's got sort of another half a lap to go or so to do that. Handley is already out, we're hearing, so I think that he will stay ahead. We've got a green flag waving, that's here at Abbey, and that's because of the Porsche 968 that's parked up just on the way into Abbey. It's on a tarmac access road on the left-hand side of the circuit, so it's a little bit off the edge of the track. Hopefully it will be good to stay there till the end of the race.
Yeah, well, we had Julian McBride's BMW stranded in a much more vulnerable position, so fingers crossed that we can stay green, although of course the approach, as you've mentioned, to Abbey and a little bit of the exit will be no overtaking for the time being. And now then, what's happening in B? Because Chris Freeman has come across the line to be ahead of Luke Handley. We're waiting for Luke to go through the loop to give us an idea of the gap between those two cars, though, Ian.
Yes, so what's happened there, of course, Luke Handley had got back into the race, but he'd already cut the beam on the previous lap, because he'd cut the beam on the way. And there is Handley now, so he's just going through, and he's just about 32 seconds behind Chris Freeman, but he is ahead of the Steve Hewson and Matt Facey Porsche. So Luke Handley in second place is 32 seconds behind, and with only 20 minutes of racing, he's unlikely to catch Chris Freeman unless Freeman has a problem, I think. But after a disappointing start to the race for Luke Handley, second place will not be too bad a result. Chris Freeman not really a championship challenger, so Handley still finishing ahead of anybody else that matters, really. Let's head down to the pit lane once more. Chris Stevens is waiting for us.
Well, we just saw Luke Handley finally coming into the pits from the Class B lead. I'm here with Tom, his chief mechanic. So that is a pretty mammoth stint that he's just put in there.
Yeah, definitely. He's a one driver car, and we just tried to eke it out as long as we can. But we had low fuel pressure warning, 5 litres left in the car, so we tried to drag it out a little bit longer. We could see something happening at turn 1, but rather not risk it and just take the stop. Everyone else has pitted under green flag, so we've not lost or gained anything.
I think it was safe to say you were waiting and hoping for a safety car there?
Yeah, definitely. If the safety car had come to us, we'd have hopefully have been on and up the road, and that was it. But yeah, just take it. It's green flag. Everyone else stopped under green flag, so make it up where we can and see what happens at the end.
Obviously, Luke doing very well in the B Class Championship, won a lot of races this year. Do you think you can do the same in the final few minutes of this race?
It's going to be tough. I haven't looked at where we are after leaving the pit lane. I've come straight for this, so I'll see where we are. It was going to be tight. I think we were going to be about 5 seconds ahead of the second place car, but he's lapping about half a second faster at the minute.
Okay, cool. Well, Tom, thank you for joining us. All the best to Luke for the rest of the race. Johnny and Ian, let's go back to you.
Thanks, Chris. We're not very far away from the final 15 minutes of this race then, and it's just starting to settle down a little bit. Great driving from Alan Henderson, though, to keep his head and to be in second place behind Rob Baker. But the lap times being produced from the Lotus not quick enough to attempt to reel in Rob Baker at this time. In fact, it extended a touch last time around to 26, nearly 27 seconds. So Rob Baker isn't quite at Carl Swift's pace, but I think that's possibly by design rather than any accident or a lacking of pace, because if Rob had put in at the start of the race, he could have pushed hard and gone for the 1:12s. They just need to manage this now in the closing stages. Plenty of cars still circulating, so there's always the possibility of some carnage around the next corner that you need to be wary of. James Ramsden in third position in the number 2 Cupra, ahead of, in fourth place, Colin Gillespie. Heading through Abbey and Farm Corner is the number 31 car. A little bit of smoke coming from the rear of this older Seat. It's Chapman now having taken over from Mike Moraes. This car running in the B category, although not in a potential podium finish position. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th position, I reckon, in the B class for car 31. Let's hope that that smoke doesn't get any worse. It might be a bit of tyre rub, maybe. It's all on the right-hand side. Got the Porsche with the pink door mirrors tucked in behind, and we'll be able to take the place, but that's not for position for a fellow B-class car. And actually, virtually going straight on there at Stowe. So is it, in fact, dropping a bit of oil? And there's a grip problem now with the car almost going off on its own fluids. We'll watch that with interest, Ian.
So anyway, the Roger Coy Porsche 968, by the way, has been recovered to a position of safety well done to the marshal. There was also the 750 Medical rescue crew for giving that a push the 100 yards or so that was necessary to get it to a place of safety. Other 49 cars back out in the race, albeit very slowly again. Rob Boston and Will States' car. That's in 26th position, but 18 laps behind the leader. So I'm not sure if that's just going to head back for the pit lane again. It looks like it probably will do. So the race leader is Rob Baker. He leads by 26 seconds, I think, from Alan Henderson in 2nd place. And then James Ramsden, it is, in 3rd place in car number 2. Colin Gillespie in 4th place, number 15. 5th place is number 86, Gary Townsend. And 6th place is number 69, Andy Schultz. There you can see, hand in the air for the Stacey and Boston car. So that car is going to pull off, and there is the race leading car with 14.5 minutes to go. 12.8 that time through for Rob Baker, so only 3/4 of a second off the lap time that Carl Swift did in the early part. Well, that was the in lap, I think, wasn't it? Although he'd done a low 12 anyway, though, I think, from memory.
Ramsden versus Gillespie. What's the gap there? Ooh, more drama for a Lotus. Fear not, though, that's not Alan Henderson. That's the 19 car.
It's the 10 car, isn't it?
10 car, beg pardon, yeah.
Yeah, which is that of
Fenwick and Shepherd.
Yeah, Shepherd in the second half of the race. Oh, it's got going again. That's good news. Thought for a moment it might be in a rather difficult position. So that car is heading back out into the race.
Easy to spin it at Abbey, though, this late on in the race as well. A reminder to everybody, or confirmation at least, that the pit lane is now closed for mandatory stops. And anyone, therefore, who has not yet made their stop within this race, if they did it now, they would incur the wrath of the stewards. Confirmation of Subiani's damage, therefore, of the 66 BMW, the white car, which is neck and neck. But that is for position, isn't it? Nick Dougal versus Subiani. And Subiani carrying this front left damage, but he's now got ahead of the Mazda MX-5.
Yeah, so up into P2 in Class C. Quite a long way behind Joel Oswick's Crown Paints Livered number 53 car that leads in Class C at the moment. We've not really talked in this race about the Clubman class, so there's a separate Clubman Cup competition, I should say, and that's basically for cars that are more than 10 years old. That championship's being led by Matt Sabre and Will Ashmore in the Army Sports Car Racing Holden Commodore, but in actual fact it looks like Alan Henderson, I think, is the first of the Clubman Cup drivers there today in his Lotus. Did we get a few of the Andy Schultz BMW going a bit slowly there as well, Johnny? Yeah,
carrying a 5-second penalty, I'm guessing, for track limits. Andy Schultz, as we mentioned, is a quick driver in that orange car, as now Jonathan Barrett has had a moment at heading on to the...
That's Abbey, isn't it?
Abbey, okay, the first corner, and now heading down to the right-hander.
Actually, no, was it
further out,
village, wasn't it? Yeah, beg your pardon.
Yeah, didn't quite sit right, but it was coming out of Village, therefore, and over the link onto the Hangar Straight, and a very kind of dog-eared looking Andy Schultz BMW, the orange car behind. Remember, part of that is being held down by some rope that has been attached to the car to hold down the bonnet. There's the crinkled looking Subiani BMW as well.
There's a few cars looking a little bit dog-eared, as you say, with bits sort of hanging off them and bonnets being sort of lashed down and bonnets being a little bit crumpled as well.
But you like to see that in an endurance race. It shows that the cars and indeed drivers have been working very, very hard.
Absolutely.
So yes, the wheel arch, which has been threatening to part company from Jonathan Barrett's car, is still clinging on, just about. Schultz comes through, still in 6th place, so he did appear to be slow. I agree with you coming out of Club Corner, but it hasn't lost him a place yet, because about 15 seconds behind is the Wallace & Wallace number 6, Seat Leon. So they've got a bit more pace to find, and to be honest, on straight lap times, that's not going to happen.
It's Simon Wallace now at the wheel of that car. He is with Matt, started racing MR2s together a decade ago now, that must have been, and then they moved into Honda Civic racing, and ultimately they've ended up racing this Cupra in the Club Enduro, TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship. Grateful for the sponsorship of TEGIWA as ever. Also support our other categories, the Red Sports and the Type R Trophy as well. It was good to have Luke Sajakowski from TEGIWA racing in the Hot Hatch Championship at Donington Park a couple of years ago, where he had success within his class. I've seen Luke racing in a Civic for a little while, but it was good to see him back out on the circuit. There's Chris Freeman then. He's our class leader in Class B. And just having a look, he's got a fairly healthy margin, hasn't he, over Luke Candy, so I don't think he's going to be caught there.
Andy Schultz is just going to run out of time as he attempts to break into the top 5, but about 45 seconds to find on Gary Townsend in the 86 Cupra. Townsend in turn generally able to lap a little quicker than Colin Gillespie. So 4th, 5th and 6th are getting closer to one another on the track, but there's margins are too big really between those 3 cars to change significantly in the remaining 10 minutes. As to the end of the Hangar Straight goes Chris Freeman, 9th position, and the Class B leader still from Luke Handley to the tune of 33 seconds.
Yeah, so plenty of time in hand there for Chris Freeman, so it looks like he's going to win Class B. I think John Oswick and Dan Orsano should win in Class C in BMW. There's the essential Class A and overall winner. It's Rob Baker just flashing the lights on the front of the car there to let the back marker know that he's coming through. And he's 26 seconds to the good over Alan Henderson, who I would think will be appearing out of Club Corner relatively shortly now. There he is. That was him just appearing out of shot. There's that 3rd place car, 2nd place car now, as I should say, in Class C. And I noticed that Nick Dougal's lost another position, albeit to a Class B car, because through has gone the Chris Byallen number 87 Renault Clear now up into the top 20. That's pushed Nick Dougal and John Munro off the first page of our timing screen here in the commentary box.
Yeah, but Nick and John should still be fine for a podium finish in Class C, because the next car in their category, a good 5 or more minutes away, in fact, which is the 58 offering. Christopher Jones and Matthew George in their Mini Cooper S. Holden Commodore, which absolutely leapt over the curbs earlier on in the lap at the exit of Club Corner to head on to the start-finish straight, just creeping through shot there at the end of Hangar Straight. And Alan Henderson does so likewise. 1:15.2 last time around for Henderson's Elise S2. Again, he's mindful of where the James Ramsden driven and the car that he shares with Ben Rushworth Cupra is, but about half a minute behind. Again, a manageable gap in the closing stages.
Sure is. So we are just working these last 7 minutes of the race now. I'm not sure there's too much jeopardy anywhere in this race now. If anything sort of significantly sort of changes, I suspect that will be because of car issues. And as I say that, the 166 car of Alan Henderson is coming rather slowly towards Abbey, isn't it, Johnny?
Yeah, that was a very slow lap, 1:32, so 15 seconds or so cost because of this. Now, we had concerns for Alan Henderson's Lotus earlier on in the race, but that must have been about an hour ago.
Yeah, at least.
When I was paying close attention to lap times, they didn't really ever get north of 1:17. Door open. Does that suggest something's leaking into the cockpit? And he's wanting to get some fresh air into there, looking into the mirrors, but also over his shoulder. And it's almost fogging up in the cockpit of car 166. Alan Henderson perilously close to a full retirement here on lap 94.
Yeah, with only 6 minutes to go. Well, I did say it's going to have to be a car problem, and that's a car problem. He's pulling off the circuit there. So Alan Henderson out of the race from second position here. And that's going to promote James Ramsden and Ben Rushworth's car up to second place, and Colin Gillespie and Phil Driver up into third position as well, with only 5.5 minutes of the race to go. So, any more twists and turns in this race? There's the car that's now going to be up to P2, having overtaken during the course of this lap the Alan Henderson car, which is now stopped. That's the Corton Miller entry of James Ramsden and Ben Rushworth up to P2.
But you work so hard, as is the case with Alan Henderson, and then within sight, not literally, but a few more laps to go of the checkered flag, it all goes very, very wrong, and Alan Henderson's car already has dropped to second position. Third place will go fairly shortly, as well as Colin Gillespie has probably passed him already as Alan came to a halt at the link. So there's the new second place car of James Ramsden. You've got to keep plugging away, because you never know when the positions might just suddenly land in your lap. And out onto the hangar straight will go James Ramsden in the car that he shares with Ben Rushworth. Gillespie confirmed now in third, sharing with Phil Drybrough. And it's looking very much like a Cupra 1, 2, 3, 4. It's because Marshall Townsend is another car, isn't it, from Spain. So all about these TCR cars, built really for sprint racing, but they have proven over the years to be, I kind of hesitate to use the word bulletproof, but they certainly do take an endurance race like this 2 hours and 5 minutes in their stride as well.
Yeah, it certainly seems to, which is why they've been a popular acquisition for a number of teams and drivers in the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship. It really does seem to be the way to go. Best, I mean, in the early days of Club Enduro, things like the BMW M3 was the car to have. That's where you have the likes of Hampson and Schultz, and they're going to be fifth, I think, eventually. That's why, yes, they do now appear into fifth position. Interestingly, that's the best of the BMWs then. It's going to have a couple more of the Leons behind it. So we're going to have, I think, a top 7 comprising 6 of the Leons and the BMW by the looks of it. And then the 8th place car will likely be the Class B winner, which is Chris Freeman, who's still got a good advantage over Luke Handley. And there's our Class C leader just on screen now, 53, Joel Oswick.
Yep, and Luke Handley having fed back into the mixture in second position under no real pressure from the third place car in Class B now, which is the 13 offering the Porsche Cayman of Matt Fazy and Steve Hewson. They're in third, and comfortably so, but unlikely to catch Luke Handley, barring any major incident. Inside the final 3 minutes then, checkered flag will wait for Rob Baker to cross the line after the 125 minutes is completed, so we'll get a few more seconds, if not an extra minute, bolted onto it, depending on where Rob is. He leads by almost 53 seconds now. Obviously that gap has opened up widely with, sadly, the expiry of Alan Henderson's Lotus.
It's 53, which is our Class C leader in 18th position. Is that car going to be caught for position by Chris Boylan's Class B Clio? Possibly not, actually, in the remaining 2 minutes or so of this race. You can see the black cross and the yellow background on the rear of the car there, showing that one or both of the drivers in that car still within their first half a dozen races or so, not necessarily gained all the signatures on their licence to remove the cross. That's the race leader though, and so I would think this now could be the penultimate lap for Carl Swift and Rob Baker, who's at the wheel at the moment. We'll just have to see whether there's less than about 1 minute 15 when the car goes across the line. There might just about be more than 1:15, so there could be one more lap to go after that as well.
There's Colin Gillespie. He is a lap away from Rob Baker though now, so not up to second place on the road. That honour, in fact, going the way of James Ramsden. And a particularly strong opening stint from Ben Rushworth, I thought, to keep their Cupra in the mix in the opening stages. Heading out, it's going to be fairly tight this. Rob Baker could afford actually to back off, but I don't think he'll want to do that because he's enjoying himself too much. Over the control line, which is the first of the two on the start-finish straight, I reckon there was just north of a lap time still on there, but that's an absolute best lap time. If he stays in the 1:14s, 1:15s, he might get the checkered flag at the end of this one.
Yeah, I can't see from here whether the last lap board has gone out or not, which it may well have done, but I've not got my binoculars out, and you really do need your binoculars to see all the way up to the other end of the pit straight there, the Hamilton straight. Either way, but a good drive this from Carl Swift and Rob Baker. I can't think that I've seen them put a foot wrong all the way through this race, so very convincing drive from the duo, and good work as well from the Area Motorsport team. It looks like they're going to get a class win in Class A and the overall win, and also a class win in Class B for Chris Freeman as well. So Area Motorsport become staffed up to all of these cars in the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship. So this is round 5 of the season, and we are counting down to 0 now. Are we going to get the checkered flag this time? The car is coming through, and it does take the checkered flag. So pretty much with 0 on the clock, it is the checkered flag to Rob Baker then, who with Carl Swift wins the 5th round of the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship. That's 4 wins from 5 races this season for the Area Motorsport pairing. It will be enough, I think, to wrap up the Class A Championship more than likely as well. I've not fully done the maths on that, but there's a good chance that they can't be caught. And even if that's not the case, I'm sure they will do enough at Anglesey and Alton Park to wrap things up. That's the car that's a few laps down, the car in 17th position, number 10. Andy Shepherd bringing that car home, so it is very nearly a lap behind that we'll find our second place car. That is the Luke Handley car. He comes through to take second place within Class B in number 51. And there comes Andy Schultz. He comes across the line to take 5th position in the BMW, so the BMW interloper into all of those Leons that are filling the top 7 places. Various other cars going through. You can see Matt Fazy's Porsche, the Subiani BMW going through as well. And there's the 53 car. That's our Class C winner then, Joel Oswick and Dan Orsano taking the Class C win in their BMW 3 Series. So an entertaining 2005 minutes. It seemed to absolutely fly by, Johnny. Not the incidents that we were expecting and the interruptions that perhaps we thought might happen after the safety cars. Perhaps our expectations were set quite low after that qualifying session, but it went through relatively incident-free, and certainly that was the case for Rob Baker and Carl Swift.
Yeah, and a dominant display, really, of a modern-day TCR car, particularly when they're built in Spain, whether they are the Seat or the Cupra variety. First, second, third and fourth for the little hatchbacks, and the BMW of Andy Schultz and Hampson finishing as the best non-Leon in 5th position. Question of what might have been for the Lotus Elise of Rob Boston and Will Stacey, because that was a very quick car, as demonstrated by Rob later on in the race. I don't think his best lap was ever bettered when he came back out onto track. And here are the results, Ian.
Yes, 99 laps, tantalisingly. We couldn't quite make it to the 100, even without a safety car there. But Rob Baker and Carl Swift taking the win just over the 2-hour 5-minute mark by 58 hundredths of a second. So not car number 1 takes the win from number 2, Ramsden and Rushworth. They were 49 seconds behind. Third, number 15, Gillespie and Dryborough. Fourth, number 86, Marshall and Townsend. Fifth, number 69, Hampton and Schultz. Sixth, the number 6 car of the Wallace brothers. Seventh, number 92, Phil Nebb and Andrew Rath. Then into Class B, and 8th overall winning Class B was number 14, Chris Freeman. He was 3 laps behind the leader. 51, Luke Handley was 2nd, and Steve Houston and Matt Fazy 3rd in the class and 10th overall. A little bit further behind them, we have Lewis Rose and Aaron Rose. We barely mentioned them, but they were 4th in Class B, ahead of Jonathan Packer, number 5. And then there'll be some cars here that are taken out of the results, like Alan Henderson, because he didn't make it to the checkered flag. But if we focus in on what's going on there with 18th position, that's Joel Oswick, our Class C winner, and he beat Johnny Hayes and Paul Supiani in car 66, and Nick Dougal even, and John Monroe in car number 3. Then the Christopher Jones and Matt George, Mini Cooper S was 4th within that class, ahead of Matthew Higgins and his Honda Civic. And then you can see that the Team Brit car of Yvonne Huffelaar and Simon Crompton made it home in 26th position overall, so well done to that particular team that we're hearing from earlier on. And I think everybody else that you can see, and indeed on the next screen, failed to make it to the checkered flag. So that brings the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship race to its conclusion. We'll see them again at Anglesey just a few weeks from now. Hopefully we'll hear from our successful drivers across the classes in the TEGIWA Club Enduro Championship in a moment, and before the cars come out for the next race, which is going to be for the Race Parts Historic 750 Formula Series. But lots of cars making their way into the pit lane at the moment, just trying to sort out who it is that we would like, if possible, to talk to at the end of that race, and we'll see how many we can do so before the historic 750 Formula cars get released onto the grid for their race. I think very efficient work has been done by the recovery crews to recover cars that stopped already from that Club Enduro race. I can see there is the Silverstone tractor on circuit doing some sweeping up. I think he's trying to do donuts now at the end of the Hamilton Straight, entertaining the crowd with his display of stunt driving. But very shortly we are able to go down now, in fact, to the pit lane. Chris Stephens has got our successful drivers.
He was in the pits.
Well, I'm down here with our race winners, Rob Baker and Carl Swift. So, Rob, that looked like plain sailing for you in the second stint.
Yeah, it was. The car was good on the way out, and the team kept me updated on the gap. And then about 20 minutes towards the end of my stint, I realised we were going to be quite critical on fuel. So I had to do a lot of short shifting, a lot of coasting into corners. The gauge said 0 2 laps ago, but luckily we put 5 litres extra in at the stop, so I knew there was a couple of litres left. And then, yeah, Carl did a great stint at the start, so it was a good race in the end. Good to see Chris Freeman and Luke get a 1-2 in Class B as well, so good for the team. Great.
Awesome. And Carl, you said the foundation was laid in the first stint. The car's taken many wins, all of them with you as well. So what can we expect for the rest of the season?
Fingers crossed it carries on. I'm not sure where the championship is for Class A. That might be pretty close to being over, but the overall's by no means over. The 2 Golfs keep whipping at our heels, so they're going to take us right to the last round.
And so, yeah, Rob, Carl mentions the overall championship. We think you guys have just got it wrapped up in A. Yeah. We're double checking the math on that, but yeah. Of course, in terms of the overall championship, what have you got to do to get it done?
Well, it's against our Class B cars at the present, it looks like. So there'll be a bit of inter-team rivalry there, but we'll just go as fast as we can to the end of the season like usual.
I'm not sure we're letting each other past as easily as we have been.
Might be a bit more blocking going on. But Luke's very good at that as well, so when you speak to him, you can ask him about his blocking.
All right, awesome. Well, congratulations. A fantastic drive from the pair of you today. Race winners overall and in Class A. Let's go and talk to our Class B winner, Chris Freeman. That was, fantastic. And also, to do this drive yourself, 2 hours in the heat we've seen today, fantastic.
I do have the cool suit, so that does help, definitely. But yeah, no, it weren't bad at all, really. I just, had no problems and that. The car was good all the way through and just kept consistent laps all the way to the end. And the car was really good.
Obviously, Luke's been, I don't want to say the benchmark in Class B, but he's taking a lot of the victory. So what do you think made the difference today?
The start, I think.
Yeah.
It was chaos on turn 1 and 2, and everybody were everywhere, and it was just crazy. And I just managed to get through the whole lot and get a gap. And I just knew I had to keep it on the track, keep on the blooming black stuff, just keep it clean and that, consistent laps, and I broke away. And I think Parkin, he had a problem with his car as well, so he dropped back. And there was a good gap. I just tried to keep the gap and keep the same pace.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. Great class victory for you, for Chris Freeman in Class B. And now, where are the drivers for the number 53? I really hope they haven't joined the pack somewhere. Do we have drivers from car number 53 anywhere? Hello, is this Joel or Dan? Joel, hey, congratulations on class victory. And then, hey, very good. Nice to meet you guys. Yeah, fantastic. Yes, get a shot of that as well. Brilliant. Brilliant stuff.
Another one. So yeah, car was brilliant. Team had a couple of problems yesterday with a brake line, but worked really hard, got it done, and yeah, on form. Joel brought it home. Another P1. Bring on Anglesey, eh?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you're looking much more refreshed than Joel at the minute. How was the second stint?
It was all right. It was a bit hot, but apart from that, it was all right. Maintained the lead. Well, got back the lead and maintained it, and yeah, that was it.
Awesome. Well, fantastic stuff from you guys. Congratulations, Class C victory. Let's go back up to the commentary box, because coming up next is the second race of the day for the Race Parts historic 750 Formula Series.